What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Dal West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, Chris Hillman, NA Literalist, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, Burn Fat Till My Stomach Is As Flat As the Earth, Nathan Thompson, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Missouri Bear, Henrik86, Liam Nedrick, Erwin Jennisons, Abraham Mohammed, David Rakia Gafford, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, Felix Hung, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, Alexander Main, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now, I do believe we've got Flatzoid and at least a few people in Discord, so I'll raise the mic on them and you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
It's actually hilarious. It's hilarious. My new favorite question to ask ballers: can you pressurize an open container? Pressurize gas in an open container.
How'd you get on with that one, Flatzoid? They say, no, what do you mean pressurised? Don't you mean gas pressure?
No.
And then ignore the question.
Have a small piece.
First they accept that there has to be a container, and then they say, no, you cannot pressurize gas in it. And then I say, okay, but Earth's got gas pressure, doesn't it? Yeah. And then I say, okay, but you just said you can't pressurize gas in an open container. And they say, no, we can. Now with Sly, if you read his comments, he thinks, when I tell him it's an open container, he says, no, it's an open container that's closed.
The closed open container, violating both the law of non-contradiction and the law of identity. You can't be both A and not A. That would be open and closed at the same time. And you can't be open-closed. That's a violation of the law of non-contradiction.
You want to know what is his idea why? It's a fish tank.
Hold on. Why what? Why it's an open-closed system?
That's it. Yeah, that's his demonstration. A fish tank.
Fish tank doesn't hold gas without a container. Even when they give us demonstrations of sulfur hexafluoride in a fish tank, it's still subject to entropy. Proportional to time, shockingly.
No. Let me get this straight. You think water is a closed system? Yep. So I asked him, have you ever taken a bath or swam in a swimming pool? How did you get in and out? Wait, and then,
Oh gosh.
I mean, these ballers will just get away with spouting any old nonsense, whereas we have to be really careful with our words. So when we're describing this example with a tyre, I'd still say open system, right? Eventually the gas will leak out of any available holes. Well, if it's got holes, it's an open system. So you can't, although it seems obvious to say, tyres a closed system. Well, no, it isn't. Entropy's still taking place based on the amount of gaps that there are between the seal of the tyre and the rim of the wheel, and that's why you have to top up your tyres with air, because it's not a closed system. Yep. But we have to be really careful and disclaim all that, while they'll just say, Earth's an open closed system, like a fish tank. And you're like, what? You can get away with just total nonsense. We have to be really careful.
Don't worry, that wasn't the dumbest thing he said. You want to know what the dumbest thing was?
Oh my god, it gets worse, does it? Okay, go ahead.
You can't take something out of an open system. It's open.
You can't take something out of an open system. You can't walk out of an open door. It's an open door. That's what he's saying, right?
Exactly.
I thought you were going to say that when he took the fish out of the aquarium.
Well, I told him. He asked if I take my fish out of the fish tank and throw it on the floor, will it die? I said yes. Thank you for proving entropy.
This is eerily familiar with another Glover. Remember, we do, we don't.
Yeah, it's the rumpus when describing
correct.
whether or not we see the geometric physical sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth. He said, yes, we do see the geometric horizon, until we point out that that's a mathematical impossibility. And then he says we don't see the geometric horizon. It only exists in the maths. Oh, what a coincidence. It's on screen right now. So they've got two horizons. One that's apparent. That would be, you can see it. It's apparently there. It appears. Not actual, apparent. And then they've got a geometric, second, non-visible horizon. Well, it's not a horizon. You can't have a non-visible horizon. The definition is it's an apparent position where the sky appears to meet the ground. Redundant, I don't need to say apparent position where it appears. It's part of the context of it being apparent, i.e. you can see it. So you can't have two horizons. A geometric one that you'll base all refracted values to give you a second apparent one. All horizons are apparent. We don't have two of them. Clicking their pages. Buster.
Yep. Tangents. Tangent kills the globe.
Hold on. Buster, you've got your mic wide open. Hello? Literally, very rarely if I ever adds anything to the conversation, then sits with the mics wide open. Might ask one of the moderators to fix the room so that you can only enter if you've got push to talk.
Well, I can't say anything. The other day I thought I muted and I didn't.
Yeah, but you're in G+. You're in G+, though.
Listening to 5 minutes of me talking to my boss.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes, even worse that you're in G+. Can't do anything about it. At least with this dude, I can just shut him up.
The comedy of errors. It's all right.
Yeah, only
It's
trusted
the
panel
pre-show.
members. Since it's been the case that there's very limited control in Google Hangouts, I've just said no, only trusted people can be here, so they don't sit on open mics talking to their bosses. Flatsoid. The trusted panel, the good guys.
I won't take it as an actual argument,
It was
but I'll think of it as one.
It's a not actual boss talking. Well, at least you broke the ice, because if I do it or someone else does it, we have company.
Boss was saying, hang on a second. I count 2 hours elapsing, and that's the cause of this car getting painted. So given that amount of time's elapsed, why hasn't it been painted yet? And you go, well, I was sat on my ass. I was not doing anything for those 2 hours. But time's the cause of the paint going on the car. Don't you know time is the cause of all things?
Well, time is only the cause if it's the second quote.
You're forgetting. It's me being here that's the effect that caused it.
Man, that was a clever pun. I got nothing for it.
Yeah, total tumbleweed moment.
My
I sniggered.
goodness.
I sniggered.
Must I laugh now?
No, it's okay. I'm still looking at your Slice Arcane text. Okay, give us instead of jumping all over, start from the beginning, go to the end so I can follow your slides that you put up.
Okay.
So how did it start?
I'd start with a basin. He says a basin is not a container. So then I put the definition of a basin that says container. Then he says, how can you change the gas pressure in the basin? I said, easy, just fill it up with water. There's no more gas pressure, now it's filled with water. Obviously they don't accept that. Says I'm lying. Then from there, just progress to closed systems and open systems.
So his
hold on, just kudos.
his
Kudos. Just 1 sec. Just kudos. I wouldn't have thought of that. Tricky question to answer. And on your feet, you said fill it with water and that'll displace all the air that was previously in it. Obviously, you've got to have containment to have that gas pressure in the tub in the first place. But still, good answer. Very good. I'm well impressed, Flatsoid.
that was what I was going to comment on. I'm saying that was so good. How could he say anything against that as Like
He couldn't
Flatbread.
He called him a liar.
That's the gist of it. But that's not all. Then he said, okay, can you change the gas pressure of the outputting water? And he said, yes, sulfur hexafluoride. Then I said, okay, I'm just debunking the flat Earth now by putting hexafluoride in a basin.
Okay, hang on. Let's go slower here because I'm just trying to figure out why he's asking questions about gas
Because
pressure.
he's stupid.
No,
Because he's stupid.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Because I'm still not seeing a connection of what he's trying to prove.
No, he's trying to. His whole argument is Earth is a closed system, but you can go in and out of this closed system.
Okay, that was good to know. So he thinks we are a closed system,
But we're open
there's
as well.
some way out of it.
Yeah.
And what is his answer? What is his way out of it? Is it like a little opening at the top somewhere, or what?
Water.
A false equivalence. Water. It's just a false equivalence. He's using a demonstration with water, which isn't gas, expanding in all directions to fill the availability of the volume it has to fill. That's not the properties of gas. When he's describing them as being like water, to compare how Earth behaves in a sky vacuum. Well, water doesn't behave the same as gas. Gas expands in all directions. It doesn't have a downward vector. But they need that. He also hasn't described how he's got a closed system if he doesn't have any walls. He's just got a surface that's spherical without any outside containment, just exposed to the vacuum that they claim the sky is. Total nonsense, violation of natural law. But he's just using a false equivalence. No, that's not the correct term. False comparison, comparing it
False
to water.
comparison.
Yeah. But you see how I first
hang
got
on. I'm a little slow here. It's early in the morning. So again, is he saying water in the sense of like moisture in the air that eventually becomes rain is the container? Is that what he's saying?
No, I have no idea. We haven't got to that far yet. But he did start gravity once.
What they'll do is they'll use this comparison where they'll say gas behaves like water. And then they'll give you, if you need a comparison, a demonstration of something like sulfur hexafluoride. As I mentioned earlier, it's still subject to entropy. It's still an unbonded gas. So by way of entropy, that gas will still disperse because it's got gaps between it. So even though it's more dense than the air and you can temporarily put it in a fish tank, when they pump it in, they put a bit of cardboard over in the demonstration because it would just all spill out because it's unbonded. And they can temporarily, for a limited period of time, entropy being proportional to time, show this effect of floating things like a little tinfoil boat on the top of the sulfur hexafluoride, an unnatural man-made gas that's very inert. Well, when they do that, it doesn't change our argument. It's still going to expand in all directions and fill the availability of volume. It's an unbonded gas. So proportional to time, same with butane in a pipe, it will eventually, given enough time, expand and fill the space. That's what gas does.
Yeah, but see, that's why I'm so happy with this argument. No matter how they look at it, they have to have a container for something.
Right.
And they're just back to square one. Even the oceans is held by a basin, apparently, so that's a container.
But it's not like the container they wheel the sulfur hexafluoride in for the demonstration. That would be a sealed container containing the man-made unnatural gas that they're going to use in this demonstration. Then they put a piece of cardboard over a fish tank, pump it from the sealed container that they transport it and store it in, into its temporary fish tank, which will eventually just disperse and fill the availability of volume like gas does. It's called entropy. It's a natural law, a law of nature. Not going to suddenly be defied by sulfur hexafluoride or butane. It's still proportional to time.
So they have to have they totally have to have a sealed container for the butane and the sulfur hexafluoride when they bring it in and put it into a basin or something with sides. And just because it takes a little bit more time for it to disperse, they think they won?
Yeah, because they've got something that's more inert. and therefore the entropy dispersion will take a longer period of time. They think they've somehow violated a natural law. Whereas in every example, they're going to wheel it in a sealed container because it would expand in all directions. They don't bring it in a wheelbarrow, do they? Right? But if their point was true and you didn't need a sealed container, they'd just bring it in a bloody wheelbarrow like sand.
No, Nathan, just take a Coke bottle and drive up to Mount Everest. I'm not showing any containers.
These people are something else, man. They gotta defend that globe to the very end, even if it makes them look stupider and stupider each time.
You still don't know what antecedent means.
Come on, Neil.
Yeah, they'll say prove dome, and you go, well, I don't know what the sky is, but we must have containment. We've got gas pressure. And they go, that's not proving a dome. You go, yeah, it is. It's an antecedent for the gas pressure we're breathing. And they haven't got a clue. They don't know what you're talking about.
That's why I'm so happy with, can you pressurize gas in an open container? And it's always no, but we have gas pressure, so...
But we have gas pressure next to 10 to the minus 17 torr of vacuum. And the gas just doesn't fill it. It just rebels against natural law. Why? Because look here, we've got a demonstration for a very limited period of time of a man-made gas in a fish tank, temporarily. We better keep the lid over it just before we do the demo, though, otherwise it would fill the space with entropy. Just take a bit longer than any other gas because it's very inert.
Yes, but you see, this point is you don't even need space in the argument for this. It's literally, can you pressurize gas in an open container?
Without the container, there can be no pressure, end quote. Conspiracy Cats 2019.
And that's just proving our point.
Yeah, space is just a total joke.
Well, when you're in the world of models and mathematical calculations and nothing physical to show or otherwise hold your arguments up, you have to go there, right? You have to say these things.
That's what Ed always goes back to. I don't see the container, Nathan. Show me the container.
Yeah, like you say, it doesn't understand what an antecedent-consequent relationship is. First, you must have a container. Then you can have gas pressure. If you don't have a container, then the gas will expand rapidly in all directions to fill the availability of volume it has to fill. Whatever the container is, it will fill it. That's what gas does. So without the container, there can be no pressure. End quote. Conspiracy Cats 2019.
Well, it's funny how they say that, Neil, about the container. But when it comes to the physical geometric horizon edge, what do they say? Can't see the geometric horizon.
Yeah.
But it's there.
Yeah. Show us your edge, flat earthers. You think boats fall off it. Actually, no. You think the horizon is a physical edge, and you think boats go over a reified non-physical position that you think can block things in the distance with its physical nature, and boats can go over it. You, the globe-believing retard, think the horizon is a physical edge for boats to go over. Not me. You. Irony of ironies. And what's that? You're going to ask me about the dome? Well, the sky's definitely not a vacuum. I made no claim about what the sky was. But your entire religious belief is based on the principle that the sky is a vacuum, in violation of natural law. If the sky was a vacuum, the gas we breathe would fill the space. And what's space? A space for the gas to fill. But according to them, even though nobody listening to this is going to this claim to be placed that doesn't exist, nobody listening's going there. You just told that's what heaven is when you look at the sky. Their heaven is a vast area with nothing in it. And shockingly, other violations of natural law claim to be gas giants, also not dispersing into a vacuum. Your whole religion of these giant bodies, lights in the sky we call stars, is an absolute embarrassment.
Well said.
they take the weakest parts of their own argument, flip them on their head, and then put them to us. Oh, all right, it's a bit crap, isn't it? We've got this idea that we've got a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon. Yeah, I hope nobody points that out. I know what we should do as globe-believing retards. We should challenge our opponents, who may point this out, to show us their edge. I know, we'll also invent a whole narrative about them having an edge. We'll even draw pictures of boats falling off it, while we simultaneously claim boats go over an edge, a physical horizon that we can't see and only exists in maths. We'll claim boats go over that, whilst challenging them to show us an edge that their boats fall off. It'll be really funny.
Yeah, we'll get them so busy, so upset about this edge that they won't be thinking to ask us that our edge is Earth curve and we don't have it.
Yeah. Or dome. Every time we point at this light and say, based on an R value we've assumed, and an assumption that one of the lights in the sky has the same R value as the light we've assumed we are, for some reason, I'm going to tell you how far these lights are, and what they are, and where they are, and what they're located in. It's located in empty space. We call that a vacuum. And the type of vacuum that it is the most powerful vacuum known to man. More of a vacuum than an extreme vacuum in our vernacular and ratings.
We can't even replicate it. Not even close.
Nope. But that vacuum that we say the sky is, with all these great distances we've presupposed with mathematics, that is going to be our weakest argument, because gas isn't filling that area that we claim the sky is. So what can we do about that? We wouldn't want our opponents pointing out that the sky couldn't possibly be a vacuum. Let's challenge them to prove what the sky is, given that they can't get there. That'll keep them busy. Ask them what the sky is. Get them to prove a dome, and put domes in The Simpsons, so that people know what a dome is, a glass bowl that we're going to assert the flat earthers say is over the top of us. Even though they make no claims of what the sky is and we say it's a vacuum. But we'll keep them busy, the flat earthers, trying to prove a dome, while we claim it's a vacuum and they make no such claim.
Don't worry, I've had a Glober today moaning with me and saying it's not in the rhetoric that space and Earth are in separate systems.
One is a low pressure system, 10 to the minus 17 torr, the other has gas pressure. You can call them what you like, but one would fill the other. It's called entropy, regardless of whether you want to define them as separate, the same. Who cares? It's a space for the gas to fill, and fill it must. It's called entropy. Therefore, space is fake.
You just don't understand, Nathan.
I understand that space is fake. Can't possibly be a real place, and nobody's going there. Just lies on the television screen about a place that can't possibly be real. Well, you're not going there, Mr. Audience or Mrs. Audience Member. Ms. Audience Member, have you been to space? Oh, what's that you say? You saw it on TV? No, you didn't. You saw a violation of natural law claim, somewhere claiming that would be gas pressure seen below from the window of the ISS, not filling the availability of volume that they're supposed to be in, whilst presupposed to be falling around a sphere. You're not going there.
But Billy Blue Balls, he demonstrated it.
Demonstrated he could have gas pressure in a butane container and temporarily disperse it into a massive, great big long pipe, an open container, to then show that it hangs around for a little bit longer if it's nice and heavy. The gas, that is. So you've got a more dense gas hanging around in a pipe for a short video. Alright, well, entropy is proportional to time. And the availability of the space to that gas is very limited, given you've only got a tiny hole in a very long pipe. Eventually, though, the gas is still going to fill the space. It's called entropy. It's proportional to time. Show me that pipe in a week's time. Full of butane still, with a hole in the top of it? No, I think not. Likewise, your container you bought the butane in would need a wheelbarrow rather than a sealed gas pressurised container if it was the case that it didn't fill the availability of volume. You could just carry it around in a little wheelbarrow. No, you need a pressurised container, though, for the butane, don't you? Even though you can slow down the effects of entropy, which is proportional to time, by giving it a vast surface area and a tiny hole. Like a tyre with a slow puncture. Look, the gas has got a hole to get out of this tyre, but look, I can still drive around on it. Yeah, do you think it'll still be inflated in a week's time with a tiny hole in it? No, it won't be. Proportional to time, the gas will still, eventually, every particle of it will hit that hole and escape, given enough time.
Nathan,
Don't
would
they
that
realize
tire
that
now
they
be
prove our arguments?
would that tire now be an open system?
That's what I went through at the beginning. When we describe this, because there's a chance that we might get to this stage where I'm having to describe the effect of entropy in a tyre, that even when you describe the tyre in a perfect condition, it's still not a closed system, because you still have to top up tyres. Even if they've got an exceptional seal on them, it doesn't last forever. Gas will eventually escape. So it's not closed. Proportional to time, the gas will fill the space. But we have to disclaim this while we get told Earth's an open closed system, like water. Yeah, what the fuck are you talking about? This is the kind of crap we have to put up with. Well, we have to very carefully point out that even when describing what seems like a closed system, a tyre, it's not.
Sorry, Nathan, I'm laughing my ass off.
What with the it's an open closed system that you described with your opponent?
What the fuck are you on about?
Yeah, open closed. What? Law of identity and non-contradiction violation. Hello?
I'm not sure we could take their. In fact, I am sure we could take any of their radius values for Venus seriously, since they can't even get the one here right.
But everything is based on Venus.
Oh, they can't even get the one here right.
What are you talking
Well,
about?
radius
Venus
keeps
is the
changing
same
by the
size of
day.
Earth.
What's that, Neil?
Venus is the same size as Earth. Didn't you know that?
Well, that's what I can't trust them, because they can't get Earth right. Black Swan, prove that.
But Neil, if Earth's radius keeps changing, does that mean Venus's radius keeps changing as well?
Of course.
Sorry,
Oh, we're
going
going to laugh at these days one day.
I was slightly distracted for a second there. Were you talking to me?
No, I was saying we can't take their values for any radius, so-called measurements, which aren't measurements but calculations, because they can't get the Earth one right. So how are they going to know what Venus is? So these people are just preposterous when it comes to validating any of their claims.
Agreed.
I mean, if you say we live on a sphere, then the sphere has to have a curved surface. And if you say for hundreds, thousands of years, whatever, the reason the boat is disappearing bottom up is because of the radius of the Earth and the start of the Earth curve. And everyone buys into it until they see the horizon behind the boat that's disappearing and realize it's optical.
Yeah, 2020, the year the physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth, died. Made into a mathematical impossibility, and, furthermore, a paradoxical impossibility to assert you're on a sphere.
Yeah, great, strong argument, that Black Swan. Especially when they bring in refraction, they die double death.
Yep. Refraction, what, 7/6 of the radius you've just told us we can't see or measure? Well, you can't see it or measure it to derive an R value to give you 7/6 R terrestrial refraction to massage at whatever rate you fancy, because you haven't got R. You have to assume a tangent to a spherical surface, and when you assume that the surface beneath your feet is spherical and you're drawing a tangent, you're drawing it to a physical sphere edge, and that's your horizon, which you tell us with a hand wave, we do not see the geometric horizon. It only exists in the maths. Therefore can't be measured, can't be used to derive refraction at 7/6 R, that's terrestrial refraction, the globe refraction, can't be used. The argument implodes. It's left mathematically impossible. Can't use an R that you can't measure or see. Can't derive R to give you R to move R. So it's paradoxical. You can't do it. That's what we've got. That's the extent we've got to do, because you're saying, well, you're begging the question, you're assuming your outcome when you assume R. Isn't enough. We've got to take it to paradox. We've got to take it to the level of paradox to prove it's incorrect with these fundamentalists. That's how far we've got to take it.
Also, the spell is so strong because of the way they cast the spell. They say that we are rotating, spinning at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. But when you look outside and stand outside, the Earth is motionless. So there they go again with another one of those things that doesn't exist, but they try to get everyone to believe it's happening.
Because it's a rotation. It's in a 24-hour day. You don't feel it.
Yeah, but how come the airplane doesn't have a shorter flight time when the continents are coming towards it, when you get off the non-inertial reference frame?
That don't count. It's different.
Excellent rebuttal, Neil. Thank you so much for playing devil's advocate.
How's it different, Neil? Playing devil's advocate, Neil?
It just is. That's the way it is.
How come Neil deGrasse Tyson, your high priest, said the football, when it made the field goal for 3 points, was the cause of the Earth moving slightly underneath it? How come it worked with a football, Neil?
Yeah, Neil.
Well, football's not powered.
That's got nothing to do with an observation from a non-inertial spinning reference frame. We're only seeing the ball appear to drift from the stand.
Wait.
Tyson. We see it appear to drift.
We move together.
Well, that doesn't give you the drift that Neil deGrasse Tyson's describing. So the claim is the ball drifts because Earth turns underneath it. It's not an actual drift of the ball. It just seems to drift because Earth turned underneath it. Well, if you're saying they travel together, that doesn't give you the drift. That's what you need to prove Earth spinning, though. Earth turning underneath at 15 degrees an hour to give you this not actual deflection. So there is a claim that Earth turns underneath at 15 degrees an hour. It's just we don't see that effect. And when we point that out, we're told they travel together. Right, Neil? Well, that doesn't give you the drift that proves Earth's supposed to be spinning. In fact, it debunks it, doesn't it? Because you're supposed to see drift. But we don't.
Neil, can I ask you a question? Neil, can I ask you a question as you're playing baller for a second here?
Yes.
Okay, Neil the baller. If that football stays in the air longer, more Earth is turning underneath it, correct?
Yes.
So if you have a hot air balloon, an airplane with jet engines or props, it stays in the air longer, correct?
Yes.
Does the Earth stop turning underneath anything with power? Is that the on-off switch that you found?
You don't understand the conservation of momentum.
Not Coriolis effect. It's conserving momentum. It's not drifting or seeming to drift from a spinning reference frame that you're attached to. Coriolis is only an observational effect. You only ever see what you think, from your vantage point, looks like, appears to be something drifting. Why does it appear to drift? Well, first and foremost, it's not drifting. It's travelling straight. It only appears to drift because it's claimed, in the case of Earth, you're turning underneath it at 15 degrees an hour. That's Coriolis deviation. You see it, it's apparent, it's not actual because it's only in effect observed because you're claimed to turn underneath. Now, if that's true, then we're turning underneath things that aren't attached to Earth at 15 degrees an hour, and we'd notice that. Now, what's the rebuttal when we say, well, that doesn't happen, flight times would be reduced? Well, they're travelling together. Whoa, hold the phone. That's not drifting at 15 degrees an hour, then, as per the claim that's supposed to be proving we spin. So you're going to justify why we don't have 15 degrees an hour deviation, Fundy? Well, that seems very disingenuous, given that the claim is we do have 15 degrees an hour drift. We just don't observe it. Do we now? Otherwise, you wouldn't have to justify why we don't see it, with an assumption that Earth's spinning, an atmosphere which is somehow velcroed even though it's unbonded, travels with it, along with your assumption. Even though that doesn't give you the 15 degrees an hour, people in the comments tell us proves Earth's spinning. 15 degrees an hour as the Earth rotates underneath. meaning that you can observe things seem to drift. So it's just you observing stuff seem to drift, but we don't observe it. Rebuttal, we're not supposed to see 15 degrees an hour drift as Earth rotates underneath to prove we're spinning. We have Earth spinning, because I assume it, and the atmosphere spinning with it, even though we have multiple directions of surface winds and gas is fundamentally unbonded, cannot be attached to Earth, and if it was, it wouldn't give you 15 degrees an hour deviation, because Earth is then claimed not to be spinning underneath, pissing in the face of Neil deGrasse Tyson's claim that Earth spins underneath to cause a not actual deflection from the stands. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Arwin, Flatsoid, Chocolate Sane and 10th Man in Discord, in G+, and together with a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Hello. Ching chong.
What's with all the Mandarin at the beginning of these shows? I don't get it. I'll get filled in hopefully at some stage. Any signs of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve, and projected on us by way of an edge of an Earth curve model we don't claim, based on their weak-ass aspect of their argument that the boats are going over an edge of a curve?
We do. We don't.
We do.
I'm sure they use plane geometry to make measurements.
One at a time.
I'm sure they use plane geometry to make measurements, and as far as I know, it doesn't take curve into account.
They just assume it.
Might be some evidence here.
They just assume it, Flatsoid. So they say they're going to measure a tangent. Well, what's a tangent? Well, it's a straight line that intersects a curve. So they'll assume that the ground beneath their feet's curved, and what they see in their reified physical geometric sphere edge horizon is a tangent point to measure, assuming the ground beneath that is curved. That's what a tangent is, a straight line to a curved surface. So if they say, I'm going to draw a tangent to the horizon, or any object that they're measuring, then they're assuming that there's a curved surface beneath it. That's just begging the question. Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? Hey, Paul.
But what about this picture?
Hi, Paul.
Hold on. What
Wouldn't
picture?
you first?
There's a guy holding a toilet. He's holding a toilet by his monitor. That's brilliant. Excellent. Mine's better.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you first need a horizon to have a sphere to be able to have axial rotation?
Yeah, you would. That's right.
Hey, that guy with the picture with the toilet has the best seat on the plane.
Boom, boom!
P-L-A-N-E.
He dropped the truth.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Oh dear.
Which gravity in particular?
How about just gravity? What is it?
I don't know. I don't even think they know.
It's a reification fallacy.
This question always has a pull on me for some reason.
9.8 meters squared.
Yeah, like
by the
It's a
way,
heavy question.
By the way, I posted a video of smoke
Where is it?
in Master B.
Is it yours?
It was actually just for Ed.
I've just got a load of pictures from you.
A bit higher.
Higher. Okay, yeah. Do you want me to play that?
Fun.
Yeah, with the smoke. It looks like smoke. Look, I've got it up. 5 seconds of smoke, right?
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. Do you want to fill in the audience why it's following on from yesterday's conversation where there was an assertion that a guy said, I'm going out for a cigarette, and we're like, oh, is the smoke from your cigarette going to go down, go boom, boom at 9.8 meters per second, right? And the opponent, I think it was Ed, was like, yeah, look at this false equivalence that I've put in the chat. And we're like, no. We've got a specific example we're detailing. Well, no, you must look at this other example where smoke goes down. And we farcically said, oh, yeah, because, of course, that's what they advise if your house sets on fire, isn't it, right? You do your Spider-Man impression and go on the ceiling to get away from the smoke because it's all going down, go boom, boom.
Nathan, I was actually smoking a vape at that time, and I was actually blowing it down, and it was still floating up and to the side.
Yeah, this 9.8 meters per second force of gravity that's 105 years out of date, superseded by Einsteinian bending geodesics in space-time, as a result of the uneven distribution of mass. It's all nonsense. However, any single viable... Go on.
Well,
don't forget, even Einstein's one is going wrong now because they're all moving towards entropic gravity.
Hey, Sleepy Maury.
Hey.
Something piqued your interest
Nathan,
because
are
we're
you
talking
saying
gravity.
that the 9.8 meters per second went up in smoke argument?
Boom, boom! You're on fire. Boom, boom!
Smoking.
You're stinking of it.
Right, Anthony.
Yo.
You typically join because you've got a point to add and we're on gravity. I know it's your baby.
It's more generic than specifically gravity. It's like, if I was to tell a story and one part of the story was incorrect or false or inaccurate in any way whatsoever, ballers would be all over it like a rash. And they would use that inaccuracy or that misspeak or that error or lie or whatever, the bit that was inconsistent, they would use that to dismiss the whole story, right? So, for example, if I suggested that I could make an egg move by a little bit of salt in water, and then I used sugar instead accidentally, they would dismiss the whole point, wouldn't they? Because I got a little bit of it wrong. Why is it that when we demonstrate numerous examples where they get their story wrong in numerous places, they just look over it and just pretend it doesn't exist and it's still a ball, it's okay? Like, for instance, if gravity is not a force, that does debunk your whole model. If you can't have gas pressure next to a vacuum without some kind of membrane to separate them, then that does debunk your whole model. You only need either of those two stories and their story's gone. Yet we have to kind of debunk every single element of their story. Otherwise, they just accept that their story's still true. Yet when it's us, and if we get the wrong thing and say salt instead of sugar, they dismiss the whole point that we're making. Why is there a totally massive burden against us compared to the burden against them? We've got to dot all our I's and cross all our T's, but they can be as lax as they want because they're still going to believe that it's a ball and tell people that it's a ball, no matter how stupid, impossible, or unable to demonstrate these points that they ever can be. I just find that it's so hypocritical.
The two descriptions are... Hold on. The two descriptions are turning a blind eye. So when you point out that gravity is not a force and they're claiming it's holding gas here, for example, they turn a blind eye to the Einsteinian replacement. Right? That's the first thing. The other one was majoring on the minors. Shout out to Bible literalist. So if you make a grammatical error when you're describing a complex scenario, then you focus on the grammatical error and then discredit the entire premise of the work. That's majoring on the minors.
Yeah, it's the opposite way around. So they major on our minors, but when we minor on their majors or major on their majors, they ignore it.
Correct. And the reason, the justification would be their argument and premise, and the reason we've had to take their argument into paradox, which is to say, well, we assume it's true anyway. We know it's a sphere, therefore I can turn a blind eye to something that I can't necessarily get around because I know it's a sphere anyway. That's their justification.
Anthony, they could only major on our minors.
And the other thing that's interesting is, like, when you get them cornered, and you know they're cornered because, like, you know that they can't get out of the next point. We all know that they're going to deliberately obfuscate and change topics or accuse you of something or ask you where your model is. And, I mean, if you think about it, right, not only if you're on our side, not only are you expected to be an expert in cartography to be able to map out the whole world, right? You're expected to be an expert in absolutely every aspect of physics, rather than accept the possibility that the key 2 or 3 main points of their belief structure might actually be wrong. We've got to demonstrate absolute, precise, extreme, and like PhD standard understanding in all aspects of physics. Otherwise, it's back to the ball. It's like, this is ridiculous. What's wrong with just your model's impossible because you can't have gas pressure next to a container? Why do we have to go into all the minutiae of all their arguments and debunk every single aspect of their arguments when it stops at the first hurdle, literally the first hurdle? It's like disproportionately against us, and it's like we have no science, guys, but we know that yours is impossible. So let's apply the little bit of science that we do have and say, well, you guys can't demonstrate gas pressure, it's game over.
Stop 1 second.
But
just hold on, Chocolate, can you not hear me? Hello?
No, I didn't hear you, sorry.
So, Anthony, you said, how can you have gas pressure next to a container? Therefore, I disregard your entire argument.
Yeah, that's what they do.
But you did, though, didn't you? You did say, how can you have gas pressure next to a container? Therefore, voiding your entire argument.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. If you get something, I mean, we all know the points that are being made on the show, the housekeeping points, and they all devastate their argument. But if you slip up, misspeak, or mispronounce something, majoring on the minor is what they do. But they never do that to themselves. How disproportionate is that?
The burden of proof's very low for them because they've got consensus. You know, remember when we went on Steve's show and the opener was, do you guys actually accept consensus reality or do you accept scientific evidence? And they were like, consensus. And I was aghast because I'd heard it detailed by, what's the guy's name? Infinite Plane Society. Like saying these people believe in a consensus reality. And I'm hearing it and it's just like, nah. Not necessarily disagreeing with it, but you're just like, I haven't experienced that personally. And then when you do, and someone outright says, if we all agree, then it's right. That's what they're saying to us. So therefore, because they've got consensus on their side, it doesn't matter if their argument's defeated. They're like, yeah, but the rest of the world still knows they're on a sphere, so I can just disregard this with a hand wave. Or, more likely than not, just say, no. Or, while you're pointing out how it doesn't work, which causes them cognitive pain, they say no while you're saying it so an audience can't hear it.
Yeah.
Well, apparently we've reached a point in 2020 that now space.com has come out with an article called How to Debate a Flat Earther.
Really?
So, oh yeah.
And why did we go through that?
Yeah, didn't you see that? The reification. It's a
it's fun, man, if you want to go through it, because
just someone read the quote.
In one paragraph, it says, to put it bluntly, we know more about the curvature of the Earth than almost any other topic in the realm of physical science. There are so many experiments, observations, and demonstrations that have time and time again revealed the curve of the Earth, and it all starts with the horizon.
It all starts with their physically reified sphere edge horizon debunked by the Black Swan. It starts and ends with the horizon. The horizon's where the lie started, and it's where it dies.
Yep.
Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
Black Swan.
The only evidence of any R would be R Win, and he's in chat right now.
Well, my surname starts with R. That helps.
I'm not the only R out there, but thanks.
Oh yeah, you've got a mate called Arse.
Oh,
What?
okay.
That was a terrible joke. Tumbleweed.
Well, Arwen, you are.
Can we lay off the Arwen bashing? There's no need.
Bashing?
It's okay, 'cause
Riley,
it was that.
Riley, I
subtle,
sent you the
link.
article. Riley, if you want, I sent you the article so you can open up and read it.
What
Should I
now?
share this to the audience? Do you think? Do the audience tell me in the chat if you want this link to how to debate a flat earther? If you want it, I'll put it in the chat. Just let me know if you do. If not, I'll just keep on with
I bet they
housekeeping.
didn't say join. I bet they didn't say join Nathan Oakley's flat Earth debate and get killed. I bet they said something like appeal to Neil deGrasse Tyson instead.
No, they told him how to come here and die. Go into the debate, having watched this video, knowing that you can assert the horizon's a physical sphere edge. It all starts with the horizon and us assuming it's a tangent point. And it's physical and boats go over it. Right? That's what they'll come here with. To their slaughter.
You mean the one that they say we do
over.
not see the geometric horizon?
That's the one, yeah. They wouldn't be aware that their best of the best is with a hand wave telling us that we wouldn't see a geometric horizon. We wouldn't expect to see geometry, and the physical geometric horizon only exists in the maths. These are paraphrased quotes from their side.
Mm-hmm.
But perspective is not optical.
Yeah, their maths is geometric, so who cares? They're not using optics. 7/6R is not optical, it's geometric.
So no refraction then.
Nah, they'd need R for that. And if they, quote, wouldn't expect to see the geometric horizon, end quote, I think that was Planner Walk. Not that he's the best of the best by any stretch of the imagination, and we could not even really call
And
Rumpus.
Kosho.
Yeah, these people are pretty low rungs. But nevertheless, that's the concise and unified rebuttal from the Globers. You're not accounting for refraction. We wouldn't expect to see the geometric horizon. Refraction. What, 7/6 of the radius that requires an assumption of a tangent point and physical horizon to give you the R value to base refraction on? Yeah, that implodes your assertion, though. Leaves it untenable mathematically. It's also, thank you to Arwen for pointing this out, a paradox. You can't measure and move a geometric physical sphere edge with R if you can't measure R. It's a paradox.
Yeah, you cannot measure Arwen.
Oh, come on.
I'm sorry.
We only got
Yeah,
halfway. We only got halfway through this one. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Oh, you have yet to see a hypothesis yet.
A
I'm yet to see any of the observed natural phenomena that they claim that they can. I mean, has anybody ever seen like a dreamy galaxy thing that they describe, like a star
just
that's dying or being born? I haven't seen anything
Yeah,
like that.
careful. You're convoluting two things. Has anybody seen whirly lights in the sky? Yeah, I've got a telescope. Well, it's not here, but I have seen that in the past. Well,
What swirly lights have you seen?
my point is that you're then attributing a description to them afterwards and saying, has anybody seen this? Yeah, I can see lights in the sky. Can I see, what did you say, dying stars? Well, why would you
Yeah.
assert that a light that goes out is a dying massive ball of gas in a sky vacuum going supernova? Well, those are all descriptions from heliocentrists about heaven that they've never been to.
I read an article about how the Earth was causing the moon to rust, and I was like, really? What's the moon made of? Like, apparently the Earth's causing it to rust. Did anybody else catch that one?
You don't mean go
Yeah,
moldy?
they can tell you anything.
Go mouldy, right?
It said rust. I'm like, oh really? I thought it was made of rocks.
I thought it was made of cheese.
Could be made of
Riley,
bloody
did you check your Skype? Because we got to go through this article. This shit's hilarious.
Yeah, do you want me to
All right,
put
okay,
it
hang
up?
on.
It's the reification.
It's a little loud at my job, so I don't want to stay on the mic too long.
Okay. I mean, I've got it up on screen for the audience's benefit. This is how to debate a flat earther. Yeah?
Yeah.
Very
I'm gonna
good
get
advice. I think you should all accept this advice. I think you should all come here and tell us how it all starts with the horizon, your physical sphere edge. This bit.
Yeah.
This bit, right? The limitation of where you can see on the ground, that's your horizon. As you go higher and higher, they would claim that it would curve into this shape, the horizon, and leave you with this, a sphere. Well, the place this picture's claimed to have come from violates natural law. This isn't a picture of your Earth, because it's claimed to have come from space. This area, this black bit, is claimed to be 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum. And this gas, which is high pressure, attempting to expand in all directions, because that's what gas does, would fill this space, instantaneously disperse into the availability of this 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum, a space for the gas to fill, automatically making this picture, the first opener that they've got, fake.
Yeah, the other thing to remember is when the ball earthers say, vacuums don't suck, Nathan, that might well be true, but pressures do push, right? So vacuums might not suck, but pressure does push. That's the bit that they ignore. So they create this straw man or red herring argument. But every time they say that, tell them that vacuums might not suck, but pressure does push. And then all of a sudden there's a problem.
It's just riddled with begging the question.
So why do people believe this? And is it even worth even getting into a debate over? A number of ancient cultures believed that Earth was flat because simply they didn't know any better. But today, there remain people who still believe the Earth is flat, despite centuries of evidence proving the contrary. So why do they believe this, and is it even worth getting into debate over? Surprisingly, while there are mountains of proof, the discussion around the idea of flat Earth, interesting that they've got no capital for the F, but do for the E. Anyway, has nothing to do at all with see, that would be enough to dismiss the whole article, wouldn't it? Anyway, has nothing to do with evidence at all.
Not keeping up with the flat Earth debate.
Oh, just because that'll slip some people by. Anthony saying that minor error is enough to discredit the entire article, majoring on the minors on our part, just for farcical. He's not actually saying that, he's just comparing.
Yeah, just making the point, yeah. But
I thought this picture was super convincing, though, you showed, Nathan.
Look at what it says. It says, surprisingly, while there are mountains of proof, the discussion around the idea of flat Earth has nothing at all to do with evidence, really. Hello? Anyway, to put it bluntly, we know more about the curvature of Earth than almost any other topic in the realm of physical science. There are so many experiments, observations, and demonstrations that have time and time again revealed the curve of Earth. Really? Where are they? Notice there's no citation here. It doesn't give you a list of them all. It just makes this is like when you'd ask Rumpus for supporting evidence when he says that, what did he say yesterday? He said something yesterday and I asked him for evidence. Oh, it was he said all forces are effects. And I said, have you got any evidence? And this is the same example. There's no citation here. And it all starts with the horizon. As objects recede from you, they begin to look smaller, yes, and slowly disappear in a very unique way. First, their bottoms become hidden, and then their tops. If you've ever watched a ship on the horizon, you've seen this for yourself. No, you haven't. You think you might have done because someone told you that was the case in an article. But if you actually go and do it, they all get mishmashed at the horizon. It all becomes a bit gobbledygook. That's what really happens. Similarly, from a great distance, all the tops of tall objects like mountains are visible well before their bases. Yeah, because there's no mountains in the foreground blocking them. Is that not the case? Earth's atmosphere is capable of playing funny tricks on our eyes, with different layers of air bending light into interesting directions. No, it's always down if you're on a ball on their model. It's not into interesting directions, is it? It's always down. This phenomena, a side effect of Earth's curvature, isn't a surefire guarantee of our planet's curve.
Whoa. Side effect of Earth's curvature, meaning we beg the question that 7/6 of the radius is what refraction is. And a side effect of Earth's curvature, you mean you assume it and then bend light around it? Side effect? Nah, begging the question fallacy. My bad, carry on.
But even if you can't look to the horizon for evidence, you can look up. Oh yeah, what's that going to teach you? What's that going to prove? Different stars are visible from different parts of Earth. Yeah, it's called proximity. But anyway, in two very particular ways. First, there is the division between the northern and the southern hemispheres. So you can see Polaris, the star nearly directly above North geographic pole of Earth, quite easily at northern latitudes. But as you travel south, approaching the equator, Polaris sinks lower and lower towards the horizon. Once you've crossed that boundary, you can't see it at all. It's blocked by the curve of the Earth in that direction. Nathan, you're about an hour and a half away from me. I can't see you. Are you over the curve of the Earth, or are the buildings and stuff in the way that I can't see because of?
Only if you follow the steps that they've taken you through in terms of the assumption that you're on a sphere to begin with. So while they describe it, they first tell you in this story that you're going to be travelling antipodal on a hemisphere. So you're going to assume that when you travel from A to B, you've travelled antipodal from where you began, even though you in no way, shape or form experience this beyond assuming it in this statement. So they just assume the Earth's a sphere by using this word hemisphere. All right, so when we go south, we're actually travelling antipodal because I'm assuming a hemisphere. Well, this is a really good way of debating us. We are going to really struggle with these tips. Yeah, definitely. Get a pen and paper, Globers. Oh, what am I saying? I should have played that very differently. These are terrible. I think all the Globers should write these down and come here with these. The other thing I wanted to point out, just before I let Anthony go on again, it says, Paul explains, how did the universe begin? And then it shows you on the opener where it really began. On a mobile above your head with mummy and daddy telling you that the sky is a vacuum and those are lights and we're like them. We're a ball. Why? Well, because I assume when describing travelling south, I'm travelling antipodal. I don't experience it. I assume it because I was told to assume I'm on a hemisphere. But that's where it really began, on a mobile above your bed. The genuine where did the universe begin is a story that's only come about in the last 100 years. The Big Bang's only been a story for less than a lifetime of my grandmother. Unbelievable, but yet they'll tell it you when you had it above your bed so you could conceptualise this begging the question fallacy. Sky's not a vacuum. This area around this ball Earth depicted on a mobile isn't a vacuum for the gas that's apparently attached to it not dispersing to fill. No, it would just fill it. Gas expands in all directions, making this entire assertion with a mobile nonsense. And the real place the universe began, in your mind's eye. Feel free, Anthony, if you've got any more.
Yep.
Similarly, as you travel south, new constellations await your delighted gaze, ones that would be completely obscured by Earth curve if you stayed up north. There's another trick you can play too. Yeah, notice they admit it's a trick. If you live in an especially flat area, well, there's curve everywhere, isn't there, right? You'll be able to see stars down to the horizon, but no further because Earth is in your way. But if you travel up, say, to the top of a mountain, you get a better vantage point and you can see stars further down than when you could before. In fact, the 19th century Abbasid Caliph al-Mamun, didn't George Bush take him out in 2010? Anyway, sent an expedition to do exactly that and used these observations to measure the circumference of the Earth. That's really persuasive, that, Nathan. I think I'll use all these arguments.
I think we should definitely advise the Globers to use all these arguments. They should come here and tell us all about how they travel antipodal and how they assume that the physical geometric sphere edge horizon blocks boats and buildings. And if you go up higher, the physical globe Earth, physical sphere edge gets a bit further away with its physical nature, blocking less because of how physical the horizon is, right? Because they're telling you it's physical, right? Yeah, we've debunked that, though, haven't we? We've got this argument called the Black Swan that absolutely annihilates the assertion that you've got a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon. We're also told in rebuttal that we wouldn't expect to see a physical horizon.
No, don't tell them we debunk. Shh. Yeah, use these arguments, please. Come in.
Yeah, get them down.
You don't have to uphold
anything. Yeah, try it out.
Yeah, Chocolate, we don't have to keep it a secret. They're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, they do it anyway, Arwin. Correct. This is meaningless.
Because they are the reification cavalry. Now, we're here in this sort of World War I situations in trenches. Like Osho and Rumpus, they're trench squatters because they don't go. They just stay where they are, get shot at, and then they crawl back in the trench. And now the trench cavalry, the cavalry is coming. The reification cavalry is coming. And they're not going to listen to these guys telling them, like, yeah, we're already doing that. And then why are you not in the next trench then? They're not going to ask it. No, they're going to storm straight onto the flat land and get right in our crossfire of the flat earth debate machine gunning. It's all going to go down.
No, all we get is the same stupid people that complain that open and closed is the same thing.
It's not. It's a violation of the law of non-contradiction and an identity
At
violation.
the end of yesterday's show.
What about it?
Yeah, I read that Flatsoid, and I was drinking coffee. I almost spit it out when I read that. The Earth is a closed system that is open. Wow.
I've just realised there was another couple of paragraphs. Let me sit this back on. I thought that was the end of it. Play.
There's more.
Whoosh. So here we go. Circles everywhere. You might not be able to mount such a scientific investigation to your nearest mountain peak, but there is something you can do to witness the curvature of the Earth in the comfort of your own backyard. You just have to be lucky and believe. During a lunar eclipse, the Earth passes between the sun and the moon, allowing the Earth to cast its shadow on the moon. That shadow is always, always, always a circle, no matter where you are on the planet, no matter the timing of the eclipse. Always. Actually, that's not even true. I've seen the lunar eclipse, and it looks like somebody's monthly, like a woman's monthly, this red blancmange thing in the sky. That's not even accurate, that.
Also, an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. It's an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy where they state they're begging the question fallacy first. So they're telling you, Earth is a sphere. Then they're telling you about an observation that you can make. And then they're asserting that the observation you can make is as per their description, therefore Earth is a sphere. So that would be formulated as such. If P, Earth a sphere, then this lunar observation, Q, lunar observation, therefore Earth a sphere. P. If P, then Q, therefore P. Also known as an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. So that's what they've got. To just tell you it's a sphere, make up a little story about what a light in the sky does when you assume you're viewing a rock between a spherical Earth. You're automatically assuming the very premise that you're trying to prove with this.
But you know what I find funny is that they did the same thing that Michelle lady did, right? The first thing they talk about is boats at the horizon, right? Doing whatever they're doing at the horizon. And then immediately after that, we go straight to the sky and the stars. But why do you do that if there's so many experiments and observations that prove that the Earth is actually curved?
These aren't experiments.
Why would you want the ones that prove the curve rather than the ones that aim in the sky?
Ones what? These are not experiments.
Anthony.
Hold on. It says scientific there. Where can you just read that part of that sentence again? It specifically said scientific.
Where was that?
About 2 paragraphs.
Oh, yeah, here we go. It says, you might not be able to mount such a scientific investigation into your nearest mountain peak, but there is something you can do to witness the curvature of Earth in the comfort of your own backyard.
Stop.
You just have to be lucky.
Yeah, so, no. Their implication is that there's been scientific validity added to this assertion. This question that's being posed, and they're claiming you can do something about answering in your own backyard, is not open to scientific inquiry. This is not a cause and effect relationship. This is not an observed phenomena. This is not science.
I thought that's what he said.
Go on, Ted.
Can't prove it.
Yeah, you were talking about eclipses, right? So wasn't there many instances where the shadow is inverted?
Shadow? What do you mean shadow? What do you mean shadow?
Well, the image that they say is the Earth in the way of the.
What? So if I beg the question that Earth is in the way causing a shadow, that's a presupposition that A, it's a shadow, B, Earth is causing it. These are all presuppositions. So usually you say shadow. Correct. What do you mean shadow? How do you know it's a shadow? And what's causing the shadow? My presupposition Earth's getting in the way of it.
But in the video, they say it's a shadow. I'm just referencing what they say. And when they said it was a shadow, it was inverted, and they were perplexed as to why. Remember that one?
So what you're saying is, based on what we see of a lunar eclipse, while we should be causing a shadow to go down, it's actually going up, which is in contradiction of what they claim is a shadow caused by a spherical Earth blocking the light from the sun between it and the moon. Well, that's a presupposition that Earth's a sphere in a sky vacuum with the sun at the centre, the very premise of the model that they're trying to prove with this shit. So we're going to assume all of that and then say that that shadow then proves all the shit I just assumed to describe how it is a shadow. That's just begging the question, affirming the consequent as described.
No, I'm just saying when they bury themselves that deep into all that begging the question, that the last thing you look at and say, then why is it upside down? Oops, back to the drawing board.
Yeah, you're saying even within their begging the question, affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy, their Q statement to assert that it's a shadow and it's going to perform the shadow, however a shadow behaves, is also debunked within the Q statement. Now, to be perfectly honest, you're right, but that's just what they want. So long as you don't point out that they've begged the question and assume the very thing they're trying to prove in the P statement, better to argue about the Q statement, right? That's what they want.
Yeah, I agree, but it's funny either way.
Yeah, look at this. This is interesting. Arguing from evidence.
Hold that thought.
Right?
Just quick shout out to a super chatter. Sorry, Anthony. Shout out to Retrobill. I just sat through a YouTube ad for shoes which began with the words, according to fashion scientists.
Was that Neil deGrasse Tyson that he was referring to in the shoes article, the fashion scientist? Because everybody seems to be a scientist.
Fashion scientist.
Yeah, everybody seems to be a fashion scientist.
Fashion is a science now. Wow.
No, it isn't. Science
It's changed in 2020.
Science establishes the cause of natural phenomena.
It's
not anything to do with fashion.
You just have to add the word scientist somewhere and you sound clever.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go with this one. Arguing from evidence, given that we're all asking for evidence for like Earth curve or whatever. However, I don't think this discussion is really about the actual evidence. What evidence? Or the scientific process, the one that you guys abuse. People who believe that the Earth is flat aren't coming to that conclusion from the same types of observations. They instead believe that we are being misled and lied to, that scientists, including me, yeah, definitely including you, want you to believe that the Earth is round despite its flatness.
So this is hold on. This is a stereotyping
despite
fallacy.
Its flatness?
Hold on. This is a stereotyping fallacy and a baseless assertion fallacy. So they're asserting that all flat earthers hold this viewpoint. That's a baseless assertion and a stereotyping fallacy.
It's also an embedded confession.
Oh, okay, go on.
Yeah.
Well, it says, and the answer, where did I read that then? Have I lost it? It was that last, oh, there we go.
Just below the
They instead believe that we're being misled and lied to, that scientists, including me, want you to believe that the Earth is round despite its flatness. That is an admission.
Yep, that's what I heard.
You can't have it round if it's flat.
Read it once more. I can see.
They instead believe that we are being misled and lied to, that scientists, including me, want you to believe that the Earth is round despite its flatness.
Yeah, that's an embedded confession. You're right.
Yep.
Unless you want to read
its flatness? What flatness? The
Unless
one you just told us doesn't exist because it's curved? That flatness?
The word round and argue that because I'm assuming that they mean curved when they say round, but obviously dartboards and pizzas, they're also round but flat. So unless you want to focus on the round bit and say it's a bit ambiguous, but that to me that is an admission.
Certainly sounds
anyway.
Like it. They're facing it as though we would expect, or they would expect the entirety of flat earthers to believe this, is how it's paraphrased, and I call that a baseless assertion, stereotyping fallacy. But after that, it's an embedded confession.
Does seem that way, yeah. So the question isn't why do people believe in a flat earth, but rather why do people believe in a conspiracy? And the answer is the same reason it always is, a lack of trust. Many people don't trust the society around them. What about proof? Many people don't trust the society around them, most notably the representatives of that society. Like the masonry? But anyway, that trust often falls even further when it comes to elite representatives of that society, which includes government officials, members of academia, and scientists like me. This sounds like it's been written by Professor Bill. I wonder if he drives a Mercedes. By claiming that the Earth is flat, people are really expressing a deep distrust of scientists and science itself. So if you find yourself talking to a flat earther, skip the evidence and arguments and ask yourself how you can build trust. Learn more by listening to the episode, How Do We Know the Earth is Curved, on the Ask a Spaceman podcast available on iTunes.
Hold on. Okay, fine. So, again, another embedded confession. You might as well paraphrase that to ask yourself why flat earthers can't keep the faith.
Yeah. That's literally what they're saying. And they're also saying, like, forget about the evidence and forget, what was the other thing they said? Skip the evidence and arguments and ask yourself how you can build the trust. That's basically cult talk.
They have to tell you that because the first thing a flat earther is going to do is ask you, where the hell is your evidence?
Correct.
For this curve.
Oh dear. It's not
Oh
a good
dear,
day
oh
when
dear.
science is writing like this.
This just came out like the other day.
This is
And
terrible.
I saw, I was like, wait a minute, is this them sending out like the help? Apparently, because now you're giving credence to this. Because you got on one side, you got Neil deGrasse saying, I won't even debate this topic because I have the objective truth. And then here you got space.com helping everybody out with how do you debate a flat earther. It's incredible.
And to summarize how, ignore the evidence and keep the faith.
Yeah. For me, that's the most important line there. So if you find yourself talking to a flat earther, skip the evidence. Yeah, that's because you haven't got any, and arguments. Yeah, because they're all logically fallacious. And ask yourself how you can build trust. Let's build our trust with NASA. How do we build our trust with NASA, guys? We just take another dollop of trust, of truth from them, and believe that SpaceX is really going up to the vacuum of space. That's how we do it. They
should have given them some proper tips. If you're debating a flat earther and the evidence is coming your way from their side, chant about gravity over the top of them so you don't have to listen to it. Should someone try and hold you to account, stick your fingers in the ears and hum.
Yeah. It's like the rumpus technique, isn't it? Just continue talking.
Yeah,
By the way,
sad.
Can I just clarify? Yesterday, right at the end of the show, when Rumpus joined, I don't know if you actually heard what I said, but I'm going to say it again so that people listening can understand the point. There's a direct contradiction, right? Rumpus argues that all forces are effects, and they're clearly not. They're not similes. They're antonyms. You can't have a force and an effect as the same thing. One is the thing that causes the other, right? So they're not the same. You can't conflate the two. Now, Rumpus tells everybody that weight is a force because it's measured in newtons, and it's calculated by multiplying mass by the acceleration due to gravity. Because it's measured in newtons, that's considered to be a force. But he also says that mass is not a force. But in direct contradiction, he will also argue that mass attracts mass in the Cavendish experiment. Now, if you're quite new to the topic, you're going to come across the Cavendish experiment and you're going to think that it sounds credible and it sounds believable and all that. And they will literally argue that mass attracting mass is the proof for gravity until you tell them that it's not. And then they can't use that argument anymore. But the fact that they use that argument in the first place when they know that it's incorrect just tells you that they're all being dishonest. But he tells some people that mass attracts mass. But he tells us that mass is not a force. It's just a number. It's a scalar. It's a measurement. So on the one hand, he's telling you that mass is not a force, but then on the other, he's using it to argue for Cavendish. You can't hold the two positions at the same time. But he will literally argue that if you're not far enough down the conversation to be able to tell him that he can't argue for mass attracting mass because gravity is not a force anymore, according to Einstein. So just be aware of that direct contradiction there, guys. It's a really good one to catch them all out on because they all do the same thing.
And it sounds like this whole section could be titled "Embrace the Fiction in Our Science."
Yeah. Well, praise the sun or his sun.
Well, we will. That's fine. We are more than happy to embrace the fiction of the current rhetoric of Einsteinian bending geodesics in space-time. What we are not happy to do is accept 105-year, out-of-date, superseded rhetoric that's been replaced by Einstein. Because that is not their argument. It's no longer their rhetoric, and their priests are telling them, as are we. Now, we'll accept their non-science, so we can pummel it much faster. Einstein's so much quicker to pummel. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No.
No. Bit of size. P waves and S waves is the best they've got, isn't it? They come up with P waves and S waves and then claim that these things could not possibly be if it wasn't for the shape of the Earth being a sphere. And then when you ask them to explain it, you realise that they're describing what is essentially an interpretation based on squiggles on paper. Now, them interpretations may be right or may be wrong, but how would you ever know? Because someone says that they're right, they're an expert. Oh, right, okay, so we just appeal to that authority and say it must be true. No, that's not what we do.
But that there, right there, that's the problem, man. Flat earthers aren't appealing to the authority. We lack trust. Remember the article? It's telling everybody we don't trust people, man.
You gotta have faith.
I got something
faith,
for the South
faith.
Africans.
Baby.
I got something for the South Africans. Oikikos.
But what did he say?
Oikikos.
You're gonna have to explain that one. I'm sorry.
It has to be marshmallows or something in South Africa.
It looks like a big round black pot that you put over the fire and you cook your meat and your vegetables in there for about like a big stew for like 6 hours on the fire. It's the closest you can get to a molten iron quartz.
Right.
Thanks for that obscure South African reference, because obviously that's going to go over everyone's heads, isn't it?
Yeah, it went over mine.
Hey, you've got quite a few South African supporters.
Ready? Shout out to everyone in South Africa. Woo, 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 woo.
Hey guys in South Africa, tell us if you can prove that when you look into the southern, the southern rotation point. Tell us if you can prove that you're looking in the same direction as a guy in Australia or a guy in South America. Because I know that they say that the definition of south is looking at the southern rotation point. But how do you know that you're looking at the same point relative to your neighbour when you both think that you're looking in the same direction, because they define that as south? Because they assume that we're on a ball. But how can we validate that? Because they need it to be directly south, and both observers need to be looking in the same direction.
Get some clarity.
There's
on your
no
terms.
Absolute reference points, so we can't really validate it.
Hold on, let's get some clarity on what you're describing with your words. What's south? What does that mean?
Well, this is my point. What is south? Now,
that's
up,
what I
down,
asked
left,
you.
right, forward, and backwards are defined as relative directions, right? So there are no absolute directions, but they tell you that the south is defined as the southern rotation point.
That's wrong. That's wrong. There is one absolute direction.
Up and down.
No, that's absolutely relative.
Magnetic north, perhaps?
Yeah, spot on.
Okay.
The problem is, though, apparently it shifts with something called declination. So although it's an absolute direction or an absolute reference point, it's a moving target. So I'm not sure whether that would satisfy the definition for absolute.
The declination aspect being applied in the south, right?
Well, all over the country, all over the plane, everywhere's got a declination value. Some of the, like in England, for instance, it's only 1 degree east or west. I can't remember which, but there's only the 1 degree. But if you're in like South Africa, then you're going to be looking, I think it's 13 degrees east, or it might be 13 degrees west, but you're not looking south. So they tell you that you got to make a correction to your compass, because although there's a rotation point in the sky, it's not actually pointing south. So they say that your compass isn't telling you the truth. You need to adjust for something called declination, which then raises the question, well, how do you prove that you're looking in the same direction relative to the other guy? Because you haven't got a reference point anymore. You're believing that your compass is inaccurate for some reason. And then you've got to say, well, how do you know that you're looking south relative to your other observer? Not south relative to the rotation point, south relative to the other observer.
So quick shout out to, hold on, just one sec. Quick shout out to Cami Nodal, who about 5 years ago sent me a copy of the azimuthal equidistant quadrupole projection. And ever since I've had it, I've used it as the thumbnail for Flat Earth Debate. So next time you look at the thumbnail, it's obviously got people over the top of it and a couple of debaters, but that is actually the azimuthal equidistant global projection of the quadrupole system. Just to give you an idea of how messed up that is as an idea to use, and why you would end up with declination when using that idea.
It's all a bit of a hodgepodge.
Yeah, well, Anthony Mack was saying, at night, where I am now in the bush, the Milky Way is right on top of my head.
Cool.
Say that again, I didn't catch it.
The Milky Way, that's directly on top of me in the bush.
Sure, but specifically though, the southern rotation point, if you're looking towards the horizon at a particular bearing, how do you know that the guy that is in Australia or in South America is also looking to the horizon at the same bearing that you are relative to each other? Because I know that you're referencing the southern rotation point, but that assumes that we're on a sphere and they're both at the southern pole. Well, if you're not on a sphere, then why they've got to be the same.
Sorry, you'll be looking at the Southern Cross.
Southern rotation point.
Southern Cross.
No.
Not the cross.
You'll be looking at the Southern Cross.
No.
Yeah, the Southern Cross, you'll know the direction of the Southern Cross will point to the southern direction.
Yeah, it'll point
That's right.
to
You're right.
It'll point to an empty area that they claim there's a star called Sigma Octantis, I believe.
Yep, supposed to.
But there's nothing there.
Oh, there is. It's just a very low magnitude star.
So they say.
And when you I contacted the Tasmanian Astronomy Society asking them to produce evidence of Octantis, and they couldn't do it. He said, you can only see it with your naked eye. And I'm like, you're kidding me? You're telling me that an astronomy department in Tasmania can't prove that Octantis actually exists? And he told me that you've got to see it with the naked eye. He said, because it's too dim. And I thought, I don't believe that for a moment, but I couldn't get evidence that it exists.
Sure.
I'm told to believe that it's just a low magnitude star.
Unless we get any challenge from Discord, which I'll pause for a moment to see if we do, I'm more than happy to say that there is a point around which it appears the stars rotate in the south. Now, the Southern Cross would also be one of them that seems to point towards that central location about which the stars rotate. But there is no pole star as such. Would anybody disagree with that?
No.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
Anybody in Discord? Feel free, you can disagree. No? Was there any more for any more, Anthony?
I have something for Anthony.
I have something to add. Sorry.
Well,
on the world, could they say you could see it with the naked eye because it's so dim, and then when you use something that's better than the eye for long distance, you can't see it? That doesn't sound right.
I agree completely. It's ridiculous.
Double speak nonsense. Go ahead, Brian.
Hey Nathan, hey everybody. It's just on the subject of magnetic declination. This is also a bit of a personal plug for me, which I have no shame about.
That's okay.
I made a video in the past few days about how the tides work. 3 factors on that would be causing the tides. And magnetic declination has to take in what they call true north. Now, you've already maybe spoken about this. I missed that part of the show. But it has to take in an angle from what they call true north. True north is just where all the longitude lines meet. So it takes in an angle from there to find your correct declination from what would be actually true north, which would be magnetic north. And the thing about it is that that's just globe latitude and longitude nonsense. But magnetic north might very well move a little bit. But I don't believe for a moment it's moving around like they say it is. I don't believe that for a moment. I believe that we're given that idea that it's moving around to this degree because of the fact that we're taking angles from what they call true north to when we're trying to find out our magnetic declination. And on top of that, it's the layout of all the lands. It's all based around the AE map and the globe, because once they're using longitude and latitude, it's all globe. So the layout of the lands where people think things are, as opposed to where they would actually be, is different. So that's a big part of it. But I do believe it's very possible that the magnetic field in the north is moving, and I detailed some of this in that video, simply because the oceans are moving and the oceans are creating. Sorry, Nathan?
Nobody interrupted you. It's all good. I've got your video up for the audience as well. It's just playing through as you talk, just so you know.
Oh, good. The oceans are creating an opposing magnetic field because water is diamagnetic, and salt water, because salt is such a good conductor of electricity, the magnetic field. A magnetic field creates a magnetic charge, and a moving magnetic charge, which would be happening within the oceans, creates a magnetic field. So you have 2 magnetic fields basically working off of each other. And you also have a sun and moon above us, and we don't know what effect they're having. We know that the sun is causing convection within the oceans, which also causes movements. So you have 2 magnetic fields fighting each other, basically, is what goes on. There's physical demonstration there for this, and I show it in the video. So I can't say 100% that's exactly what's happening, but I can show with physical demonstration in my video that that a magnetic field creates a magnetic charge, A moving magnetic charge creates a magnetic field. That convection creates movements within the oceans. That water is diamagnetic, and that salt water has that a magnetic field has a much more turbulent effect on salt water because of the salt being such a good conductor of electricity. So you have two magnetic fields working off each other and constantly fighting each other, basically. And it's very possible that the magnetic field in the north is moving due to the movement of the oceans, or maybe due to the sun or moon or whatever. But there definitely is more going on there than we're led to believe. I won't go into too much. I'll leave people watch the video, rather than because I could be talking for another 20 minutes. But that's the basics of it.
But the thing is, it sounds like you're describing a self-perpetuating machine, and there are no such things as them. They don't exist, so therefore we can dismiss what you're describing because they don't exist.
Yeah, well, it's funny, you see, because they do. The only self-perpetuating machines that I've ever seen that actually worked were involving electric charge and magnetic fields. And we have a creator of this place. Now, as I said yesterday, Anthony, to yourself and Chocolate and Arwen, the person who makes the video game is not subject to the rules of the video game. So what we think is possible and what actually is possible, like we have to be within a completely renewal, like we have to be living in a self-automated, enclosed dynamic system that has to have some kind of perpetual motion working within it in some way, shape or form, because everything works within everything. Everything has a reason. It's like every nut. It's like every part of our system is like a nut or a bolt or whatever in an engine, if you understand what I mean. So it all works off of each other. And yes, we can have a perpetual motion system going on. Only a couple of years ago, just for as a reference, a couple of years ago, there was a guy in Ireland here. I think it was going back in the 90s. He created a magnetic engine that works off of a magnetic field and electric charge. And he was bought out by the oil companies or whatever. But he claimed that there was a totally perpetual motion machine, more or less. Do you know what I mean? Now, I don't know, but that's that would be the closest you would get, because a magnetic field creates an electric charge. And if you can make that electric charge move, it'll create another magnetic field. You know, it's like, so something is going on here. There's a lot more going on than we are led to believe. It's certainly not, we know it's not the moon doing this with the tides. And would the movement of the waters creating and opposing a magnetic field, and with the sun and the moon, we don't know what's happening there. So it's very possible that, just going back to the original point, that the magnetic field in the north is moving around. But as in the field moves around. Maybe the magnet or whatever is not moving, but the field is moving around. But the whole magnetic declination thing is a farce, because that involves the longitude and latitude lines, which are just taken off of the sky. And the point in the north and the south of the globe, they're not in the sky. You know, those parts aren't in the sky. The use of the sky for navigation, which is where longitude and latitude came from, the parts where the longitude lines meet in the north and in the south on the globe, they're not in the sky. They're added in. The rest of it for navigation is used. But when you go above 70 degrees or below 70 degrees, parallel, I mean, how much more? That's mostly what the latitude and longitude using the sky navigation system was used for, because ships didn't travel above 70 and below 70 because of ice. Right. You know, so
we're gonna have to get into this more in the after show. But just before I round out, any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
No, but we'll believe it anyway.
Any more? with that, I'll say if you're watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where I bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video. I shared your video, so I'll spam the link in the chat, Brian. So hopefully a few people go and watch it and comment.
Thanks, Nathan. It's hard to get views, yourself these days.
Yeah, I do my damnedest whenever we cover a video to actually share it. So if I'm ever watching in the after show, or when I'm watching in the after show, I will share it with them as well.
Yeah, and if anyone can show that I'm wrong in any things I show, I mean, I'm not claiming 100% that's exactly what happens, but I'm showing an alternative to what we're told, which is the moon, which has been out of date. I mean, as a theory since 1915, when Albert Einstein superseded all Newtonian. So it's not, and if the moon has anything to do with the tides, which it could have, I don't know. It's very likely it does, because everything in our world works with everything else. Then that's not because of gravity. Sorry?
I'd be more inclined to think that the moon is pushed around its orbit because of the tides, and it's creating like a what they call what's it called when you have a 4x4 going through is it called a
wake?
When you have a 4x4 going through water, you got to get the speed right, because it creates a bow wave. It wouldn't surprise me if the waters were creating a bow wave in the gases, and it's that's pushing the moon around, and it's the opposite way around to what they tell us. But anyway, Brian, what are you doing over the weekend?
Hold on, before you get into this, we're still recording. So, although it might be relevant, I will find out in a minute. Regardless of your speculation, Brian, I've got to agree with you. There is a certain harmony to what we experience that seems to show itself time and time again. So, yeah, to speculate that the moon is somehow involved, or at least part of that harmonious system that we see, well, we observe that anyway, don't we? Isn't that kind of self-evident?
It's correlative, not self-evident.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll agree with you as well, Anthony, but I'm just saying that time and time again it's shown to be harmonious, right?
Yeah, there is a synergy going on, definitely.
Yeah, so why wouldn't the moon be? That's my point.
Exactly, Nathan, yes, exactly. Sorry, Anthony, 1 second. I just want to agree with Nathan there, yeah. I mean, the moon, it all has to work with each other, because we see nothing but cycles, year in, year out. Even with astrological cycles, where there might be something happens that didn't happen for 30 years. They knew it was going to happen because they know what happens every 30 years. This kind of thing. So, go on. Sorry, Anthony.
What are you doing over the weekend, Saturday, specifically, at dinner time?
You need me to help you out with something?
But there's something big happening in Liverpool. If you're interested in flying over into John Lennon and getting into town, it's going to be fucking massive, because the government's changed the rules now, so you're not allowed to do groups that are more than 6 as from next week. Have you seen that news article?
I didn't see that. Well, that'll be in the UK, yeah.
Yeah, they're tightening it up because they're saying that the second wave's coming, right? So they're not allowing groups of more than 6. Basically, what that does is indirectly it stops people doing protest marches of any kind, because it permits the police to go in heavy-handed on you. So basically, what the argument is this is the last weekend before these coronavirus the second wave kicks in, And there's the amount of people that are coming up from London, coming down from Glasgow is just huge. So if you're free and you can get into John Lennon, get the bus into town, you want to see it, because it was bad enough 2 weeks ago. It's going to be absolutely bedlam this weekend, and then next weekend it's going to be London. Man, there's lots happening. It's worth seeing.
I won't make promises on it, but I'll let you know before Saturday in message. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that you need to let me know. I'm just saying if you're at a loose end and you can get into John Lennon Airport for the weekend on a cheap ticket, it's worth doing, because it's going to be an eye opener.
Okay.
Roxanne's coming up from London with a tribe of them. There's a shitload of people in Liverpool that are going over that didn't go over the other day, 2 weeks ago. If you can, mate, get over there, because it's going to be glorious.
I agree. It would be something good to see. I do agree with that. But I will say what I said to you yesterday as well, though, is that this whole thing happened back in March, within the space of 4 days.
Yep.
The whole world caved.
And the laws and the laws that happened changed before that. And that was when I shit myself for about a day and a half. Once those laws were passed, that's it. The new normal arrived. The new normal is here. If you haven't already got used to it, fair enough. If you want to indulge in your last opportunity to have a group protest, more power to you. But as you've rightly pointed out, you won't be able to afterwards. And you've already pointed out the reason why. So this is a fait accompli. It's already happened, correct?
Yeah.
What are you hoping to achieve? I'm not trying to pour scorn on you. I'm just interested. What are you hoping to achieve?
It's a trial run for what's about to happen in the next couple of weeks in central London. So it's being tested to see how the police behave. So it's not just a protest; it's more a test of the state to see are they going to take, because basically these are all unarmed people, mainly women.
Hold on, and you're telling me you're testing the state to see if they'll enforce the law?
No, to see if they will attack the people that are not armed, and just see if they'll attack the people.
That's what I said.
On this. What?
That's what I said. I said enforce the law.
Yeah, see if they'll do it. See if they'll attack.
Yeah, they will. Will they enforce? Well, hold on.
People.
Will the law enforcers enforce the law? Any guesses from anybody whether or not the law enforcers will enforce the law?
Well, they didn't in London when it was like 4,000 or 5,000 of us. But now like 10.
Prior to the law, you've just told me that the law's about to change in that regard.
Yeah, but look at it this way: we're all supposed to be wearing masks outside, right? No one was wearing masks.
No, where have you got this from? Hold on. God, you don't know these laws very well, considering... Where have you got this from, Anthony?
When you say this, what are you referring to?
Your claim that you just made.
Well, you're supposed to be wearing masks and socially distancing when you're out in public, aren't you?
No. Social distancing. What about this wearing masks outside? Do you think we have to wear a mask outside? No, we don't.
I'm not sure, to be honest. The masks is in and out. Sometimes I'm not sure what the rules are on the mask, but I do know that you're supposed to be keeping a social distance. That's true.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not implementing that because there's too many people in a small space that they just can't implement it.
But the group gathering thing, they've nailed down, and that will change in the next few days, right? And you're saying it's a trial run prior to that change being made, whether or not they'll enforce the law. Well, no, but if you're suggesting that people then go and base their idea of what will happen in London once that's changed, well, it'll have changed and they'll just arrest everyone.
But there's going to be like 10,000 people. They're not going to be able to do that.
Why not?
Because there's only so many police.
You're telling me they can't... You're telling me the police aren't trained in crowd control? You're telling me that 10,000 people... Have you ever been to a football match?
Yeah, but they can't.
How many people come out? How many people pile out of the football matches that you've been to? In thousands or tens of thousands, Anthony?
Yeah, but what are they going to do to implement these rules? Arrest everybody?
Sorry, you haven't answered my question. How many people come out of a football match, approximately, and is it kept under control?
Yeah, but you're describing control, but you previously said that they'll arrest everyone.
If they breach the law that's about to change and gather in groups that have been specifically prohibited, then they'll be arrested, correct?
No, because there's going to be like 10,000 people. They can't arrest 10,000 people.
Well, they can disperse 10,000 people and arrest a select few, though.
Now, that's the question. Will they disperse? Because they're going to have to do it by force.
Will they impose the law that they are there to impose? Yes, they will, absolutely, without question. Is that what you're trying to find out?
That's the question. Will they do that?
That's not a question. That's not even up for debate. Will the law enforcers enforce the law? Yeah, they will.
Well, let's see. That's what's going to be tested this weekend. Not this weekend, next weekend.
Why?
But in Liverpool, it's a dry run.
It's not a dry run. It's prior to them saying that you can't gather in these groups of 6 or more. So it's not a dry run. That's not true.
Yeah, it is, because it is a dry run before next weekend when it all changes, and then that's where it's going to be. There's going to be murder in London, and that's what the whole point of this one is, to see what happens with people in Liverpool, because it's a good test bed. Just watch what happens over this weekend, and then wait and see what happens next weekend.
It just sounds like you're enticing. It sounds like you're inciting issues in London. That's what it sounds like to me.
That is what's going to happen. Yeah.
Why would you want to do that?
Because people don't accept this coronavirus bullshit as anything credible.
So hold on. I tried to go through this the other day with the guy on the Discord panel, but he didn't want to hear it. Right? They haven't lied to you. They've given you a poem with numbers about what's happening. Now, they may or may not have, for the benefit of the news receiving public, left out information that they could definitely disclose at a later date. And it's absolutely mathematically accurate. You can't disagree with maths. It's maths. It's very just so. Now, it's also abstract, though, isn't it, Anthony? It's not science either, right? We understand that here. Right. Well, knowing what you know about the abstractions of mathematics, you can choose to live in fear or not. But in those two choices, inciting riots and putting people in a position where they may get arrested because there's been a law change, to me, seems absolutely insane.
I never said inciting riots. You added that bit yourself.
But they're going to enforce a law that you're breaking. So that to me sounds like you're going to incite a mass of people, 10,000 people, to put a law enforcer into a position where he's got to enforce a law.
Correct.
Well, that's a problem. That you're going to incite deliberately for no perceivable benefit to protest what? That you don't believe the corona statistics?
It's not a problem because the question is, who is the one that's inciting the violence?
You are. They are the lawmakers. They are the law enforcers. Well, you want to rebel against that? See you in jail.
Right.
You've got to accept this. You don't.
And the jails are already full. Yeah, and they've only got so many police.
You don't need to appeal to me on this level, right? These are the facts of the matter, aren't they, Anthony? To be in this society, you've got to put on the straw man coat, same as I have, right? And if you are wearing that straw man coat, you've got to accept the laws that they've already laid down. Now, I've said already, I shit myself about them back in February, right? When they actually came to fruition. And no one was looking, they were all worried about dying because of the poetry of maths. Well, I wasn't. I was concerned about these law changes. And when there was a time to do anything about it, nobody did anything about it. They all worried that they were going to die of a cold. And now it's all, that doesn't matter. I can talk about this now. The magic trick's over.
Okay. Can I jump in on this?
Can I ask you something, Nathan?
Yeah, sure.
How would you challenge then the laws being applied imposed into the people?
You need
if
to
it's
do
not
it
with peaceful protest.
Perfect. I can't give you specific details, but there is a man on the panel right now who can. There is a process of objecting to these laws as they are imposed, but you do it while they are going through the process of becoming laws, not after the fact. Now, in terms of education, if there's a specific in the education process, you need to get in when there's a law change being made for you to challenge it. Well, once they were passed, that's it. They're done. And they were all rushed through in every country while no one was looking, and they're already a done deal. So as soon as I understood that, I'm like, you slap yourself around the face a few times and go, right, accept the new normal. This is it now. That's it. The done deal.
That's it?
Yeah, that's a done deal. What are you going to do about it?
Challenge it?
Challenge it in law? Your time's passed, mate.
So you're just gonna...
Your time's already passed. I'm telling you how it is. You don't have to like it.
Follow the rules?
Just let me tell you how it is. You don't have to like it. That is how it is. Now you've got two choices.
The same way it goes around.
You can either take off your straw man coat and remove yourself from society. That's your choice. You can do that. Or you accept these laws. These are the rules you are governed by. Don't have to like them.
Or challenge them.
Don't have to like them. That's part of the
Nathan
society you're in.
Honesty.
Can I chime in on this?
If you want outrage, I can give it you, right? If you want me to shed a few tears for the civil liberties I've lost, I can do that for you too. Do I agree with it? No, it's a fucking outrage. Tough luck. Deal with it. New normal's here. Accept it. Or take off your strawman coat and remove yourself from society. That's your choices. That's it.
Well,
I'll try a third time. Can I chime in
we
on
gotta
this?
fight people like you then, right?
Go 10th man. Go
Gonna-
10th man.
Challenge me all you like.
Hold
Hold on. Let's let 10th man in. He wants to be between us. Who was I talking to in Discord?
Yes.
Just so I can come back to you.
Okay.
Hold on, 10th. Hold on. I'm just going to establish who I was talking to. Who was I talking to?
Silent Zero.
Oh, that was me, Silent Zero.
I'll come back to you in a second, Silent Zero. Go ahead, 10th man.
That's fine.
You're both right. Nathan's right coming from where he's coming at, and Anthony's right coming where he's coming at. And the laws were changed here too in the States. We saw it. We protested. Didn't do any good. Now they're on the books just like they are over there. So what's left to do? You're either going to be sheep, and they're going to do more laws and more government control, or the people are going to say, you know what? Last I checked, this was a representative government. They're not representing the masses. Let's hit the streets. Let's let them know how we feel. That's where Anthony's right. And that's the test. So now we'll see if they're going to enforce the law on the books, because I'll tell you right now, they are not enforcing the laws on the books here in the States when it comes to rioting, burning, and looting. So that doesn't mean they're going to enforce the laws over there either when 10,000 to 100,000 people show up in London maybe. And if you're going to be sheep, then just obey every law that these dictators put on you. But if you don't want to be sheep, then you're going to say enough is enough. This is supposed to be representative government. You guys did it in the middle of the night. I know we're a little late on the way to change laws, but because you guys have shown that you don't care for the people, we're going to hit the streets. And it's going to be a change of a different kind, isn't it?
Yeah. I was just going to say one word needs to be said here to counter Nathan's position. Tiananmen Square. That's all you need to. That's all you need to say.
Oh yeah,
but you're both right from the few points you're coming from.
Hold on. What do you know about Tiananmen? Hold on. What do you know about Tiananmen Square?
Well, what do you know about Tiananmen Square?
What I got from the media. What I got from the media. What do you know?
Do you know what the Tiananmen Square significance is?
Do I know what I got from the media about the significance that was placed upon it? Yeah. Do you know?
Yeah.
And what was the media spin that you're now going to parrot to me?
Well, I want to check that you've got any of the facts right on this at all. Just give me the facts for what the Tiananmen Square incident was.
Your point.
What?
It's your point.
Yeah, but I want to know.
You tell me how Tiananmen Square is relevant. Go ahead.
What was the Tiananmen Square facts? What happened at the time?
I don't know. You tell me what facts you're utilising to make your point.
Right. So I'm assuming that you know what I'm talking about when I reference Tiananmen Square. But
Not yet. You haven't told me specifically
what you do.
No, I don't. You tell me specifically which specific aspect you're referring to, and then I'll see if I know it or not.
The one single man that stood in front of the army of tanks and he stopped it all, and everybody went berserk because of it. Do you not remember that?
What about it? That bit of propaganda that you're now parroting off to me. What about that?
It wasn't really propaganda, though, was it?
How do you know?
Because it changed a fascist state and it changed the whole way of behaviour, wasn't it? It changed everything that is the old communist fascist state that was in power at the time is not there anymore.
Oh, what a beautiful story.
Anthony, have you been to China?
I have to agree. Like at first, I thought like it's inciting violence what you're doing, Anthony. But I do think at the same time when that other guy spoke in, you have to stand up for your rights, don't you? And you have to fight the system in a sense. You can't just you have to test them to what they're saying. So I'm quite neutral on it, but I do think both of you hold very good points.
Yeah, it's because
I'm going to say something on it when Nathan.
Go on, Brian. I want to get back to Silent Zero, but yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Back in January, February time, that was the time to do something about this.
Yep.
Now, I said say this yesterday, Anthony. That was the time, and the whole world folded in about 4 days.
Yep.
Now, nobody did anything about it when they should have done something about it. And what Nathan said is 100% true. Everyone was terrified of dying of a cold. And the proof of that is everyone's going around wearing masks today. Now, the problem you have is that you shouldn't be, what the real protest here should be against the incoming laws that are going to be passed for the 6 people at a time thing. That's the best protest you should have. Because protesting about laws that have already been passed is not going to stop the new ones coming in. And
it's hard to get protest without emotional sort of motivation. Do you know what I mean? It needs to be something like an emotional sort of response. That people have to be against, racism or
let me finish what I was saying. Right.
Gun control. It has to be something that kind of gets people going. That's the only things that people come out of the house for.
Yeah, but 1 second, Tom. Let me finish what I was saying. Right. Protesting against the laws that are coming in is your best damage and control you can deal with at the moment, as opposed to protesting about laws that have already been passed. Stop them laws first, because otherwise you're going to have more laws on top of the ones already there. But better again, I said this a couple of months ago, and it was only a simple idea, but it doesn't matter. It would have a massive impact. Just on Twitter or whatever else, hashtag burn the mask. Hashtag burn the mask. Everyone just burned our stupid masks.
What mask?
Yo, what mask?
Yeah,
I haven't got a mask.
Yeah, all the masks. You're not wearing one. I'm not wearing one. But how many people out there are wearing them? The whole idea is to burn the masks. It's like a mass mask burning. You're showing that you're basically from then on in ignoring the whole thing. The whole world has to start just ignoring it and say, no, stop taking it so serious.
All right.
Because the whole world is taking it very, very serious.
You're not going to get Brian. Can he just conclude his point? Hello? Hello? Can Brian just conclude his point? He's nearly there.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. The whole world is taking it so serious that it's giving it credence and validity. You take away the validity of it, and the whole world burns their masks. Burn the mask. Hashtag burn the mask.
But then
or a different hashtag similar. But the whole point is that the whole point is that
you're not going to get people motivated for it.
You can't, like, the time for that, for the time to fight like that was back in February or whatever. Now, the best thing you can do is take away the validity of the thing.
Brian, I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. Your point is good. I think at Liverpool and London, whenever this happens, or anywhere else in the world this happens, they should all gather and burn their mask at the same time that they're protesting this. But here's the way
I'm not talking about at the protests. I'm just talking about
I know.
In general, people. Go on.
I know. But if I burn my mask...
I'm sorry. I misunderstood you.
Okay, hold on, Brian.
If I burn my mask with no witnesses, who cares? 10,000
No, but you don't. You burn it with your neighbours. Everyone videos thousands and thousands of people burning their masks.
Why?
Everyone burning their masks. And everyone's not wearing masks anymore.
I'm trying to get to my point.
Okay, but
hold on. Just let 10th man get his point in. Hold on, Brian. Go ahead, 10th.
All right. Back in January, February, they used a flu virus of some type as a cover to change the laws and called it a pandemic. So they put fear in everybody with people dying that weren't dying, hospitals full when they weren't full. Now that's come to light. And everybody in the Western world knows that none of these facts match what they did with the laws that they said they had to do. They had to do it for the sake of everybody. So now, since none of it was based on facts, we can see that the lawmakers were in cahoots with a much greater, more darker plan. So you either going to take it or you're going to fight. That's where it's at.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
Can I make my point now? Yeah. Can I make my point? Like, I think you're right that we should protest these things before they get put in law. But you're not going to get 10,000 people showing up to say, "Oh, we want to march as 6. We want more groups of 6 people." It's not going to motivate a people emotional response. That's how you get the people out. It has to be something that people are passionate about. And burning masks, for example, not everybody is passionate about burning a mask. Some people
they want the
think,
mask.
Oh, it's just a mask. Put it on.
Most of the normies want the mask. They want it. They're wearing it because they're worried that they're going to die.
Yeah, that's right. Some of them do want the mask.
So what's going to be more... Tommy's point is what's more effective, right? If I say, on the one hand, you might die. On the other hand, You might not be able to have a group more than 6 people. Right? Which do you think your average Joe normie's going to take more consideration of? Might die. Might. Based on poetry of numbers. Or can't gather in groups of 6. Do you think you're going to convince the masses? Now, when you say, I heard it differently, when you said burn the mask, I picture a metaphor of me and my release from whatever you see the mask as being the tyranny of, right? That's a metaphor, right? You burn it like the women burnt their bras. It's a metaphor, right? It's not necessarily necessary that you gather your neighbours together and watch this, get your zipper out and light it up. And that would be symbolic.
Or you could.
Or you could, it's symbolic. But the metaphor still has the same principle in terms of your attitude, which is what's actually being discussed. But that's individualistic. That's not necessarily part of a group, unless you want to influence others by showing that symbol to them, forcing them to take your view on it. Well, they've already won. They've already convinced the masses that they need to be scared, and they are. What do you think you're going to do to change that?
Yesterday,
it can be done.
Yesterday, my
hold on.
my
I want to hear
daughter
Anthony's
came
response. He's the one who's under the cosh here.
Yesterday, my daughter came home.
Hold on,
with
Tenth.
her
I want
kids.
to hear Sleeping Warrior. He's the one under the cosh currently.
The things that are, the things that can be done are not things that are considered to be part of a constitutional or a civil society, which is why it's going to be interesting. That's why I'm trying to tell you guys to pay attention to what's happening, because this is one of them days that you only see once every 20 or 30 years, and it's coming. They can't stop it either.
And if the police break your legs with truncheons, don't come running to me.
Absolutely. If the police fight the public that are unarmed for what's going on, then there's going to be problems. That's my point.
Nobody got much.
Yesterday, my daughter came home. She went to see the doctor with her kids. So she got 4 kids, and we had one of them. So she had 3 with her. A baby and 2, 7 and 6-year-old. And afterwards, she had to go to a postal annex to mail something. So she doesn't wear a mask either. So she walks in with her kids, and the guy over the counter says, "No mask, no service, get out." And she says, "Well, I have a medical exemption." He says, "It doesn't matter, get out." And he's really rude to her. And there's all these people with masks in the store. And she says, "Okay, I understand, it's your store. How about if I wait outside, you come and take this away, I'll give you the money, just mail this, I have to get it to a client." Nope. So here's where it's happening. Today it's a mask. Tomorrow is going to be some kind of mark in the government system where you can't buy or sell without it, just like the Bible predicts. This is all conditioning for a future date.
Yeah, I agree.
That's why I walk into stores today and they say, "Where's your mask?" And I say, "Mask? What mask? Mask. Mask for what?" I don't even acknowledge this bullshit. Are you kidding me? Get the fuck out of my face. That's all I have to say.
I mean, when I said burn the mask, exactly as Nathan said, it was a metaphor. Now, people can burn them in groups if they want. They can do it any way they want. But the whole point is, no matter what protests go on, the police will always have more force than the public because the public gave it to them.
That's not true.
And are you?
That's not
one
true.
Second.
We
one
could
second.
get it.
One second.
This is the issue, Anthony. I don't want to get into a debate about whether or not the lawlessness will overthrow the law, right? Because you might be right. Hypothetically, you might say, no, they're not as strong as you think. It's irrelevant. Now, if I appeal to 10th man in a different phraseology, I described earlier casting off the straw man coat. Well, that's your association with a society that, in your belief, 10th man, will lead to the mark of the beast, and unless you've got it, you don't get to partake in society. Well, that's the same exact analogy that I gave earlier. Now, I accept that at some point it's going to probably come to that. Either I relinquish my straw man coat and detach myself from a society, because, for example, if someone comes along and says, "I'm going to inject your kid with this shit," that will be the point that the straw man coat comes off, and I'll be running to the forests. Metaphorically speaking, or otherwise, it might be literal. But that will potentially be a choice, and you've only got those 2 choices. Now, I've racked my brains for another choice. How can I be a little bit a part of the society that's fucking me? Right? Just a little bit of rape's okay? No, it's not. Well, you've got to make that choice at one point.
That's why I said you both were right coming from the viewpoint that you were coming at.
Yeah, there's not only 2 choices though, Nathan. You're wrong. There's 3.
There's only
You're
one
ignoring the
choice.
3rd one.
Well, let's say the guy that said there's only one, and then we'll hear you, Anthony. Who said that from the Discord server?
Yeah, there's only one choice. So why would you legislate in the first place if you have no foundation for the bloody pandemic? You just legislate and pass laws. You know that's a lie. So why would they legislate? Why would they accept something which I know of that it creates a bunch of social implications? I go out, and do you know what I mean? So that's the problem. You really have to think about it profoundly.
You're wrong.
So why would
they haven't lied to you? Right, hold on. Just let me get this clear. I just want to clarify, and please don't just interrupt immediately. You're wrong. They have not lied to you, right? Equally, they haven't lied to you about being on a spinning ball flying through a sky vacuum. They've made it pretty explicitly clear it's a model, and if you misunderstood or misinterpreted that and then reified the model into a sphere beneath your feet, and others around you who are moronic enough to actually portray that as their actual understanding, well, more fool you. The information that you received was statistical, descriptive, poetry. Now, the poetry itself, it can't be wrong. Maths can't be wrong. You know, it's maths. Right? But it's still abstract. It's poetry. So to say they've lied to you, no, you just didn't necessarily pay enough credence or look into the statistics and what they actually meant. And often people are putting up how the medical body, I've forgotten what they're called, CDC or something like that, will tell you about how they attribute the statistics to somebody with an illness that's going to die anyway, and they're quite open about it. So they're telling you how the statistics work. It's just poetry. They haven't lied to you. And when they're blatantly honest about what they're doing with the statistics, people hold that up and go, look, 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 look. It's like, yeah. So recognise that it's not science. No empirical cause has been established. The maths, well, they're abstract. Is that a lie? Well, no. But you've misinterpreted it. And now you perceive that you've been lied to. Well, okay. If you see it that way, if I just take that as read, you've got two choices. These are your kidnapper, in your view. Well, you've got two options. Flee from the kidnapper, or engage in, Stockholm Syndrome. Yeah? And just stay with them, but fight them a bit here and there. Well, those are your options as far as I'm concerned. You're like, well, no, I can object and moan about the fact that this law has been passed, because it was passed on this pretense of mathematical reification that I have done. That's what you're saying. That's on you. I haven't done it. I'm like, oh yeah, this is nice poetry. That's it. That's all I've done. But I'm not stamping my feet saying, you've lied to me. It's like, no, I looked at the statistics. I listened to what they told me about what it meant. And then because of what they told me that it meant, I didn't really concern myself too much, because I didn't see that there was too much to be concerned about. Everyone else shit their pants and then started moaning about the thing they should have actually been concerned about in February, which was the laws that had changed. Now, you can appeal to them all day long about the motivation behind the law change. They are totally separate things. The justification for the law and the law. Now, if you pull apart the justification all day long, it's not going to do a thing. You're wasting your time.
Personally,
after Anthony says what he says,
personally,
say something.
Personally, I love my mask. It's a simple yet effective way to display my righteousness.
To display your what? Righteousness?
His righteousness.
Anthony, you're going to finish up what you were going to say, and then I want to say something.
Yeah, to quote Nathan's words, he said, you've got two choices. You can either accept it or you can run off into the woods. No, that's not actually true. There are three choices. You can accept it, or you can run off into the woods, or you can go stand in Tiananmen Square and stop that tank from coming in. Which are you going to do? You're going to have to decide to do one of three things. And I decide that I'm going to do the Tiananmen Square thing. I don't agree with what's going on, and it's time that it has to stop.
You bullshitting. You've got this romantic notion that Tiananmen Square is actually an effective way of stopping the government machine. You actually believe that shit, do you, Anthony?
Yes, because
it
worked.
Oh, you're a fantasist.
Well, let me. My point rides on what he said. So let me just say this. So we heard Nathan saying when they come to get his kids and force of some kind of dictate, like a vaccine or whatever they might come up in the future, that's the time he's going to fight it. That's when he's going to run for the hills or whatever. Now, chocolate, my daughter, many of us, we don't wear masks, right? So we're kind of fighting it now in this way.
Masks for what?
Right, exactly. So, okay, so now others, this group of people that all over the world gets together, like Anthony is saying, they're doing it prior to that. Okay, now that number of people is going to grow by exponential the minute what Nathan says starts happening. So all the people that don't want to go to the protests, like Anthony says, they're going to actually be joining the group that went to the protest when the vaccine is like, you better get this for your kids or else. So that number only gets larger later. But right now, whatever that number is of early protesters, that's the number that it is. But later, more people will jump in the fight. But it's all based on the fact that early on, they got a law passed because they lied to everybody about a pandemic when it wasn't such. So the law has to be nullified because it was based on false facts. It wasn't true.
It's a pressure. He's right. It's a pressure cooker.
So how do you do that?
You hit the streets and say, we're not going to take it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you hit the streets, and in this really dreamy world that I've got an idea of, one man can stand in front of a tank and change the world.
No,
well, you either hit the streets or you hit the hills later.
No, just...
So how historically does the law get taken out?
Two important points here. Very important. First off, back in January, February, the whole world was told there was this deadly virus. And all the government said they were going to change all these laws to put a load of things in place. And everyone went along with it. Because when I say everyone, I'm talking about 99%. Went along with it because they were all scared of dying of this deadly virus that there was no validity for. Right? Now a lot of people in the public who didn't think about it back then are all protesting now against these laws that were brought in when they should have done it back then. But secondly, and this is more importantly, what this does, right, is you have a lot of people who are flat earthers out there who are all focused on flat earth, right? And all these people then went off making videos about COVID and all this, and they continue going down these roads about this conspiracy and that thing about COVID, and some of them are talking about how it was 5G and God knows what other nonsense, right? Flat Earth is the head of the snake, right? This is the head of the snake. Stop concentrating on all this other nonsense, because this other nonsense we can't really do a whole lot of it. Even if you think you can, you can't. But whatever you can do.
Not if you're doing that. That's why I asked the question. So how does historically bad laws get taken out? How historically does that literally work? Examples, not an idea. How does it actually work?
I'll tell you.
They don't.
Complete change.
They don't.
I can speak to that.
That's the answer.
Because they got the media, they got the army, they got the police force, they got robots.
That's all not an answer.
They don't.
I got an answer.
Arwin,
no, it's not an answer.
You asked me how. I'm telling you how.
I've got an answer.
So you have to talk.
Not like it.
Is that your answer? Because you could have summarized that.
Well, Paul says he's got an answer, Arwin. So if you can stop arguing with 10th man long enough, Paul will give you an answer, hopefully. Go ahead, Paul.
It's simple. There's a lot of books there's a lot of laws on the books here in Tennessee now, currently, that are just not enforced. I can't even think of any off the top of my head, but I know there's a lot of them. So there can be a law that's there, but if no one enforces it,
that's not what he asked. Stop. That's not what he asked. How do they come off? They don't, Arwin.
What? Say that again.
They don't. So you're saying they're on the books. So not taken off the books, they're just not enforced. But should they need to be, they're still there just in case, right?
Yeah, not really. They could be enforced.
Yeah, they need to be scratched out of the box.
No.
Yes.
No, that's not going to happen. Yeah, that's what you think. Okay, idealists. Thank you. Let's have a few more fantasies from a few more idealists.
I'd like to have
burn the entire library. If that doesn't work.
It's not ideal.
You can stand in front of that tank if you're Spartacus.
Yeah. You stand in front of that tank, right, thinking that you're going to change the world. Maybe put a flower in the end of the cannon before it blows your fucking head off.
Oh, no, I will not. I will get in that freaking tank and take it over.
Yeah. While they take your head off with a bayonet from the inside of the tank, Arwin.
That's the point, Nathan. The minute a society or the minute a state turns on its own people, that's when it becomes, well, I don't know what you call that other than
not
the worst
turning. Why are you using this terminology? They're not turning on you. They're just enforcing the law
against its own people that are not criminals.
That's not criminals if they're breaking a law.
Constitutional citizen is not
this is going to descend into chaos. I'm going to have to end the show soon. If the audience can't hear what's being said because everyone's talking over each other, there's no point. No, the law will be enforced if the law is broken, not against their own people. No. If it's a law that's being broken, they'll enforce it. I absolutely guarantee you of that.
I guarantee they won't. They won't be able to. They don't have the resources to be able to deal with thousands of people that are all pissed off.
I said earlier, I'm not going to get into this discussion about whether or not there's a power of will between these two forces. No, this is cut and dry, Anthony. Now, regardless of whether or not you think there's maybe this could happen, under the actual textbook definition, what should and would and will happen, if there's a law being broken, the law enforcers will enforce the law. There's no crime against the people in that scenario.
I do want to give a shout out.
I kind of have to agree.
Constitutional rights of citizens is not a
shot everybody in America.
Did I not just say I can't keep the show going if 5 people decide they're going to reply?
I just want to reply one thing to say. That guy who was holding an M16, that young 17-year-old lad, and people ran at him. I mean, obviously he's going to use it, and I feel like that's what the law enforcers are going to do. They're going to enforce the law. You know, why would you run at somebody who's holding an M16? I mean, I wouldn't. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
so it's like kind of like you can't kind of put yourself in the firing line for something to go wrong.
Those people had handguns and shots were fired previously, so he was in self-defense. But before we go anywhere, I want to give Arwin a shout out because of anyone on the panel, he's got the tankless job.
It's not a funny thing, though, especially if people talk over me whenever I make a point. Right now, so can I make my point now?
Yes, Arwin. Yes, you can.
Any law that violates the constitutional rights of citizens, wherever you are, is not a valid law and cannot be justified to be enforced.
Now you're talking.
Well said. Arwin.
Now you're talking.
And when you get above that in the God's law, then you can really be a real man and stand in front of a tank, protest for something that really matters, and that's the glorification of our Creator, like we're doing with Flat Earth, which is all that matters. All these man-made laws, it's all distraction, it's all division, to distract the masses away from the Creator itself. Just like Flat Earth, just like every man-made law, every written division, you know, we can see it happening. People are waking up. We just have to be the voice of reason.
Look at that, Dave, a crusader.
I couldn't agree more. And not only that, I see the protesters buying into the Hegelian dialectic. That's all you're doing, in my view. And I don't mean to demean you, Anthony. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I totally see what
we got to glow.
Hey, 5 people.
Sorry,
don't end the show. We got a globe earth proof from extremists.
Okay, we'll get to the globe proof in hopefully a couple of minutes when we round this out. I'll turn my lights back off.
I hope it's a real proof. I'm ready.
There was something important. I said this to Anthony yesterday. The British police forces have in their armory, they have 40 years of the PSNI, formerly known as the RUC in the north of Ireland, 40 years experience on hand from them on how to deal with riots. And they dealt with riots that involved people in there who had Kalashnikov rifles, Magnum handguns, and explosives. They deal with riots even today that are organised. Right? They have stuff ready to go for a riot all the time.
Look, these guys who've been trained in Northern Ireland, they have never faced a man stood in front of a tank. They don't know how to deal with the will of the people.
Bullshit.
They've never seen Spartacus.
Blew up tanks.
Yeah, I just think you are putting yourself in the line of fire. I think. I mean, I've never gone to a protest in my life, and I never will. Or even vote, even for that fact. But you are kind of asking them to, hit you in the head with a gas gun. When I watch these riots in America, and I'm like, why would you go to these protests and just get shot by a tear gas gun? Or like, I'm just like, why would you do that?
Yeah, you idiot. What are you doing getting shot with that tear gas, you moron?
You know what I mean?
Well,
like, just stay at home and watch it on TV.
Remember the words of Alexander Solzhenitsyn about the gulags? Anybody know who I'm talking about?
Good life.
No.
I know something of it, yes.
Yeah, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, a Russian dissident, was arrested and sent to Siberia. He wrote great memoirs of it all. The Gulag Archipelago, it's called. And in there, he talks about how when the arrests were first happening, of course, passed by law in advance because of the communist dictatorship and so forth. So he said he was in his apartment building and you could hear the footsteps of, I think he was saying 6 or 8 soldiers and a higher up, like a commander who led them. And they would come in and you could hear the boots and they'd knock on the doors and take the young men out of the first 2 floors. Of course, he was at a higher floor. And then the next day, same thing. And then finally it came to his floor, and then, of course, he was arrested. Then he reminisces as they're around the little campfire in Siberia with the men who were arrested. And they were kicking themselves. They were so mad. And he says, here's why. When they were coming to arrest us, why didn't we get in the lobby with bats and knives and anything and just take 1 or 2 of them out so that they would have a fear that they wouldn't return to their homes with their wives and children? All they had was rifles and handguns. And it was only 6 or 8 of them. And we could have done it. We could have fought for our freedom, but we didn't. And we're over here regretting it. That's why you do it.
Word.
Thank you,
now,
Braveheart.
If you go ahead.
Spartacus.
Okay, right. Is that the last word on this?
Liberty.
Anthony's point is there was one guy in front of that tank in Tiananmen Square, right? What if it was 30? What if it's 100?
It'd be a lot more messy. There'd be a lot more brains to mop up.
No.
Nah,
I'm standing in front of tanks every day.
Yeah,
you should be too.
I can't agree there, brother.
No.
Chocolate,
that's how
I stand in front of tanks every day and say to everyone else,
about that
if not, you're going to lose your right to stand anywhere.
Dude.
We already have.
China is a very big
Let's just correct Dave. Dave. Dave, you've already lost that right. We need to stand apart together.
That's right.
I agree with you in some instances. He was standing in front of that tank not to stop that tank. He was standing in front of that tank to stop future tanks. So if we don't stand right now in front of the mass tank and the whatever tanks that we're facing right now, then our kids will face even worse situations that we're in, if you can imagine that. That's why I stand up every day.
Yeah, it's a Manic Street Preachers lyric.
You guys know why the tank didn't drive right over him? Because of media ops. It wasn't because they actually cared about the person. China is such a screwed up big country that those soldiers were probably from, I don't know, a Europe length away. So they don't really feel it's about media situation then.
I posted a link. I posted a link about
everyone be quiet. Silent Zero. Go ahead. Silent Zero. Go ahead.
I said I posted a link about a woman getting arrested in Australia just for posting about a protest.
Yeah, pregnant woman.
You don't think that's pretty bad?
A pregnant woman.
A pregnant
with other
woman,
kids.
Yeah.
In their house. I mean,
that's so 3 days ago.
Yeah, but what has any of that got to do with the Earth being flat? Because that's the only thing that matters. You can show the whole world that the Earth is not what they told us it was. Then you'll have all the protests you ever need.
I'll tell you why. Because
hang on, Ted. Hang on.
No, I'm going to answer it. I'm going to answer it right
One second. I'm not finished speaking.
Come on, Brian.
Yeah, neither
right. All this other stuff is like, it's the same thing as, can we see France, in Dr. John Dee's photograph? Maybe we can, maybe we can't, but we can definitely see that the horizon's not where it's supposed to be. Or no, sorry, not where it would be if we were on a globe.
Has that turned into an obfuscation distraction technique from the actual Black Swan argument? Called it.
Yeah, well, it's a distraction. It's a distraction from when you're dealing with a snake. What's the most dangerous part? The head. No, I have no problem with snakes. I like snakes. I like all animals. But when a snake wants to bite you, if you have a knife, what do? Do you stick it in his tail? No, you don't. You chop off his head. If I was a commander, I'd be telling everyone, stick with chopping off the head. Never mind the nonsense. Never mind the tail and the scales and whatever else. Chop off the head.
Or
this is the problem. All this stuff is...
I agree with you, Brian, but let me just respond. While I agree with you, in principle, when you're talking about dealing with the issue head on, chopping off the head of the snake, but let's take this example of this old news with this pregnant woman in Australia. This woman in Australia, let's say for the sake of argument, she happened to have been a Nathan Oakley 1980 or Quantum Eraser or Sleeping Warrior or Brian's Logic or an Arwin subscriber. And she understood that maths was abstract and the importance and significance of scientific validity being offered to a cause and effect relationship. Now, if she understood that, she wouldn't have had any concerns and wouldn't have been inciting the things that she was on Facebook. She'd just go, it's all nonsense. And she wouldn't have given it much concern. A bit like me. Yeah, I'm not on Facebook telling people to go out and riot in Liverpool. Shout out to Anthony Riley.
Didn't say riot, said protest.
I was just joking.
Yeah, right. But Nathan, you're wrong there too, because not everyone's going to be like you and Brian. And I wanted to answer Brian's statement. Okay, now let's get back to context.
It's just a matter of time, isn't it, Brian?
Like Riley, because they are willing to stand up for it. Yes. You know what I mean? We have to. People like that are willing to stand up for it. We do have to salute them. But it just doesn't mean I would personally. But I do think people like are going out there and standing up for it. It's good for them.
Well, it's a tankless job.
It is a tankless job. All right.
No, tankless. You missed that.
I hear the point I was making about that.
Arwin, I was about to.
That man's trying to speak.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do. Arwin, I'm going to give you the podium because you were interrupted. Now I'll go after you. Go.
Oh, so you didn't actually hear, because I was explaining for like a minute, and apparently everybody overtalked it.
I'll just take responsibility. That was my fault, Arwin. Go ahead.
Yeah, so about the Tiananmen Square again, what I was trying to say is that's not what you think it is. You know, people like to always project their own personal social feelings onto such things. Yeah, that soldier in the tank didn't give a shit about that individual because he lived probably a Europe's length away from that city, an entire Europe away.
That's not true.
Can I finish? For fuck's sake, Tony.
Go on,
right, so it's not the same situation. It was all about the media ops. That was happening in a moment of unrest, and the country was under international scrutiny. And that's the reason why it couldn't happen. Not because the soldiers cared so much. Okay, that's not how that worked.
I agree with you, Arwin. That's why a protest in Liverpool and London, as Anthony says, will be under the media scrutiny, and we'll see what happens.
Right.
Well, that's the point. It's going to be media blackout. You won't even get to hear about it.
Indeed.
Okay, so
sorry,
am I ever going to answer?
No, we're all going to talk through you.
Okay. Well, this relates to whatever's more important at the time. Let's say you haven't eaten in a week and you have to feed your family, your children. Are you going to be thinking about the gas pressure without a container, or are you going to be looking for food, Brian?
Don't know, gas pressure without a container is quite a strong argument.
I was going to say, that's a pretty strong argument.
Say that again.
Before you think about eating, you want to breathe.
Yeah.
Well saved, Anthony. Kudos, Sleeping Warrior.
I got this very well by Arwin. That was good, Arwin.
Say that again, 10, please.
I said, it depends. Oh my gosh, Arwin, that was a good one.
It was me.
I was saying, yeah, that was really good. I was saying that if you haven't eaten for a week and your children are starving, your grandchildren are starving, and what's on your mind is to get food, you're not thinking about gas pressure without a container at that moment, even if you're a panel member here, right? Would you agree with that?
So, Anthony, do you agree with this special pleading fallacy?
I said, I don't know, gas pressure without a container is quite a strong argument.
Yeah, no matter how hungry you are.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, Tent. That's the thing, Tent. I am still concerned.
Everyone, hold on. Everyone, calm down. I want to. Brian obviously wants to respond. Everyone, be quiet. I just wanted Brian. He obviously wanted to give a serious response. Go ahead, Brian. But please stop laughing.
Thank you, Nathan. I am still worried about gas pressure without a container, because that is the very reason that we end up in that situation, because of a belief that these kind of things are possible. It's because that is the reason. That is the head of the snake. So yes,
okay, I got it.
I am still concerned with that.
I got it. But if you're dead because you haven't eaten, how are you going to fight that argument if you're dead?
Yeah, you will have to do what you have to do. Don't get me wrong. So
you'll have to eat, right?
Can I elaborate for Brian? Can I just on Brian's bit off? Hopefully, I'm elaborating on the same track as you, Brian. Correct me at any point if I'm not. So, in the same way, me and Brian are in agreement that the time for concern is when the laws are being passed, not when they've passed and are being enforced. That's just going to get you into trouble. Well, if you take that logic and expand it back further and further and further and further and further, eventually you get back to this bullshit idea that we're living on a spinning rock and all of the lies that have come before that. If you wind that back even further, and it's weird because it's only an 80-year-old story, we get the deception that's the heart of it all. How have we come to be here? What are our origins? Well, we've been created. That's the origin of it all. And them lying about that, for whatever reason, you can take a biblical approach if you want motivation. Fine, seek it in the Bible, I don't care. But the reality of it is we've been deceived on a massive scale about the nature of the world and how it came to be. And their lies have led to the situation we're in now. So you can, if you're going to, look at the previous path that's led us to where we are. Why not start at the beginning rather than the most recent thing that you can't do anything about? I think that's Brian's point. I might be wrong.
Well, no one's
exactly
arguing
it, Nathan. Exactly.
I wasn't arguing that point. The point is that if you're starving and you're going to die, you won't be around to argue that point unless you eat first.
Yeah, you're not going to let go of the special pleading fallacy, are you, 10th?
It's not. No, it's a special eating fallacy and a shameless plug for my cooking channel. Let me finish.
Speaking of chow, I got to go get some breakfast. The argument's in Ballbusters. If you want to check the argument, it's by extremists. I'm going to go get something to eat.
Oh, damn it.
I knew I have somebody back me up.
Ant-Man, technically your channel is a food reviewing channel, not
Hold
a
on,
cooking channel.
Can you hang around long enough if I put it on screen, Kiwi?
Good.
The only explanation I've heard from flat earthers about two different celestial poles is that it's fake / an illusion / some issue with perspective. Who wants to pull that?
Yeah, my response was 2015 called. It wants its disheveled argument back, but extremists, he's on server mute, or not, he's muted by himself. So does anybody else want to champion that 2015 argument for us?
Does any global want to take responsibility for that argument, bearing in mind it will become your argument? I'll just reiterate the argument. This guy is saying that the only explanation he has heard from flat earthers about the two different celestial poles is that they are fake / an illusion / some sort of issue with perspective. Is there any globers that agree with this?
No, there's ether too. I think I heard something about ether.
Do you know where the issue lies, though, Chaiki, in terms... Come on, guys. Do you know where the issue lies with his assertion, though? Do you recognise the affirming the consequent within his assertion? Chaiki?
No, you said that's the only argument, and I added one.
It's presupposing a sphere, Chaiki.
So it's not the only argument.
No, but A, are you willing to champion this argument? You've said you don't agree. But I've also asked, do you recognise where there's a begging the question in the assertion that it's a celestial pole, presumably antipodal travel, to make this observation on a sphere? I just wondered if you recognise that part of you begging the question, religious belief, or not.
Begging what question?
I can't hear him, he's mumbling.
Canadian, Nathan.
Yeah. The argument was from Nakes, that friggin' numpty dipshit. Yeah, he's not available right now, is his excuse. But you had a couple other ballers jump on the idiot friggin' bandwagon. including extremists, a couple other people. These people are cowards, man. And morons, by the way. Nakes, you're a friggin' poster child. Pretender clown. Numpty dipshits. I think go get some breakfast, man.
Just as a summary for the burden of proof reversal fallacy that assertion is to ask a flat earther to explain their assertion that you would have antipodal travel when travelling south to observe these star rotations. So the only explanation for having a different observation in the south hemisphere, like we detailed with the debate against flat earth website thing from space.com, the same principle applies. Just assume your outcome and assert it to the flat earther to explain how, when you assume you're travelling antipodal to observe star rotation, that wouldn't be explainable on a flat earth, because I've begged the question that it's travelling antipodal to make the observation, therefore begging the question, affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy, like pretty much every assertion that you're going to have asserted as being a claim to be globe proof when it isn't.
I don't think they get that. They do not get that.
No. And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley or Nathan Oakley 1980 premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What's that article?
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!